Well, tell somebody,
do you have a spare
look at it and
for
say,
Yeah.
if you can hear me, come by and
Just
stick
take
your
one
head in
and
and say, I
the
can hear
rest
you.
to
I bring 4 of them, just for that reason. I've got one more for you.
Oh, I don't need two.
She's actually in the room, so that might work.
They're 2 different items.
Oh, okay.
Make
Sounds
sure I gave
good.
you 2 separate.
Too
Okay.
funny.
Yep, uh-huh.
One's the
Alright.
snow removal. for-
Well, I don't have a problem asking Byron if he wants to do it today.
Okay,
If he
do
doesn't.
not judge me on grammar, punctuation,
Oh,
sentence structure.
Yeah.
The law says we have to do
Hopefully
that.
airplanes still.
Yeah, but we don't have to do it today.
No,
There's the
no.
airport.
And we've been to the jail recently.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking,
Part-
I know we have to do it
Just
today.
Oh.
He's done it.
I did have a couple things I wanted to do. Remember how long we Yeah. Yeah, I know. If we get done by noon, I'm all fired.
Oh, yeah.
I try to get this thing
Sometimes that's
done.
Been ready to go.
I didn't see anything that's good list too.
No, I don't either.
I haven't been in the ESSA
Is that
since I
good to
came
go?
back.
Cool.
For,
Okay.
Is
so,
that your
Really?
replacement?
10,
Yes.
15
Yeah, they got their new
minutes.
window.
Meredith.
too.
Meredith, I'm Trey.
But except on police.
You know, Lynn?
Oh,
Yes, I do.
yeah.
How's it going?
So it's admin at, is that what we're doing?
BOCC
Oh,
admin.
BOCC admin.
You'll get a hang of it soon, don't worry.
BOCC
You got any money you
admin.
wanna bet on that? Because I'm struggling.
About a quarter.
Because they use military.
guess.
you know,
You
one
could
way,
probably-
one way only.
You
Well, she
should
hasn't
probably
been
have
paid.
I said the
IT
other day
set
we
it
saw
up
your wife
so
and
that there's
she
a
was
redirect,
so
so you type
not
Brenda,
adamant, but,
and it
well,
goes
I'm pretty sure
to,
it's on Tuesday.
All right, let's see if you get
I'm
it.
going
There.
Mental midget.
Okay.
had it off on my
What am I
calendar.
Me included.
So I actually been
Good.
I know.
set me straight because.
Print 4 copies.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. What a gal. We say, Lynn,
Good
and
morning.
there's old Trey, Trey.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
That's
is
it.
Trey.
Correct.
Okay, gotta get it right.
UI.
Is that a third? Are you a third?
I'm a third, and Ansel felt Crossville is just too much.
You can.
Glad you're Trey.
that's like the
Board
number.
of,
Yeah.
Custer County Board of County Commissioners will come to order. Let the record show today is February the 6th at 9:00 a.m. I would ask Miss Meredith Nichols if she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball.
Will you conduct the roll call, please?
Commissioner Flower,
Present.
Commissioner Kanda,
Here.
Commissioner Prince,
Here.
Attorney Clint Smith, not today,
Not present.
and Clerk to the Board Kelly Camper, present.
Thank you, ma'am. For the record, Attorney Smith is again in the hospital in Pueblo for the 2nd day. They're still running some tests, and shortness of breath was the initial symptom, and they're pretty confident it's not a heart attack, but they just can't determine what it is, so they kept him another night. So sent an email today and let us know that. Amendments to the agenda. We have an item, but I believe we'll deal with it under Commissioner items instead of amending the agenda.
I have.
Okay, Commissioner Kanda?
I've got a couple things under commit items, but I don't need it.
Okay. All right. Audience introductions.
Jackie Bubis from Sentinel.
Bob Jolly from the airport.
Trey Crossville Airport.
Lynn LeGree, Airport.
Guinevere Nelson, Extension.
Welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it. Obviously, no attorney items, administrative assistant items. None. Okay. Public comment.
No commissioner items?
Oh, gosh darn it.
We just met yesterday.
He's flying along.
I know. Yeah.
He's got 12 o'clock in mind, and we're gonna get out of here. at 12.
On a roll. Commissioner items. Commissioner Prince, would you care to start, sir?
The only thing I have since yesterday, the 3 of us met with the water consultant. I thought it was very enlightening. Other than that, I haven't done anything with this 24 hours.
Thank you, sirs. Really same with me. I mean, we all three sat in that meeting yesterday, and I thought it was time and money well spent, so
Very good meeting.
that would probably be all I have.
Okay, the only thing I have, we did have a good meeting with the task force in the morning. I got the report back. Jay and I missed half of it. And she did send forward to all of us a request for us to put out a letter to the community and a couple of things like that. You've got them in your email, but I'll send them to you anyway. Also, I've got an update here on the current spend on the plan. I'll give both of them, one to you and one to you. And this is the what the contract value was, and that's where we are on it. For example, $1,500 for interviews with stakeholders, that she did way back in January. You can track everything that was allocated against what we're doing. And then you can see where she put in a new task force meeting too, which was yesterday for the $750, and we moved that off of Wetmore and back in. So then we're going to press down the process here, and we'll see how the time goes back on the joint meetings that we have scheduled. If you look on the second page, you'll see the potential new task force there for an additional 700, and maybe increasing the length of task force 4. That comes to about $1,000. So we're good for now, and we'll just press on where we are.
Okay, may I ask a question, please? I heard, although I haven't seen anything written, that Ms. Collins, Peggy Collins, resigned from the task force. Do you know if that's true?
She asked to be. She still wants to be engaged, but she would like to substitute somebody because she's got her husband. It has problems too that she's dealing with medically.
Sorry to hear that.
And so yes, and so that we need and I think she was recommending either Brian Anderson's wife, I can't remember her first name, and Debbie was there yesterday to step in. So I asked them to send it to us. Who's going to be who do they want on there, and we'll insert them. Well, Peggy's coming and going.
I think that should be our decision who goes.
Sure,
on.
but they have to recommend. I asked them to recommend to us who they want.
That's fine. Thank you. I just wasn't sure where we're going.
No,
I had heard she resigned.
She didn't resign, but she.
Okay, but I'd received an email from Deb saying that Peggy was no longer wanting to be on the task force directly. Now, I'm happy she's still involved. I have no
She wants to
issue
be
there.
involved, but we'll see what she
And that's
participates in.
That's fine. I just wasn't sure.
But we do. I asked them to give us a recommendation so we could make sure that we're
Great.
covered from that angle.
Thank you.
So the new task force meeting, that was not an original
No,
scheduled
it was never
meeting?
scheduled yesterday. That's when we moved forward because as a result of the meeting we had first, they wanted to do it early, and we wanted to see if that way we get them going, and then if we needed an additional one, we can deal with that.
Now, this does not include the additional funds that we
No,
allocated.
the things that are blocked are things. This would be included if we don't do the other two back. There's enough money to handle that.
Got it.
But if we include the other two that they're recommending, extending the length of time and another potential meeting if we wanted one. See here, popular new task force, possible. You see that listed below there. So it's we're within budget and our proposed what we thought we would allocate in case we decided to do those is covered.
Okay.
And you got the dates there, so I don't want anybody confused. And I'll give you one too.
Okay. And are you sending those to both papers?
Yes.
Okay. Then we're good.
And then we'll send the other PR stuff to both papers as well. Okay, that's the only other item. Oh, and I think I mentioned that the meeting we had yesterday is good, and I'm looking forward to the meeting this afternoon, and it's still at 2, is that right? The snow's not scaring anybody off, is it?
Yeah.
It's snowing hard at my house.
Yeah, I know it's bad down toward Slida, and it is bad over toward Denver. It's going to be worse than it is here, so who knows?
Okay, thank you. Anything else, gentlemen, before we move on to the search and rescue letter under commissioner items? Okay. Pat Fiore requested the commissioners consider, I think you have a copy of it, writing a letter of support for a EMTS provider grant.
I saw that, but
Here, I've got my copy right there.
okay.
And so this is very similar to the letter we provided last year when they were requesting a grant for a vehicle. This year they're writing that grant and requesting radios, DTR radios. I would move that we approve the letter of support for search and rescue.
I'll second it. We did.
It's been moved and seconded to write and sign a letter of support to search and rescue. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Sign that, sir. Thank you. And you said no administrative assistant items, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'll give you this letter here in just a second while you're here.
I'm on the commissioner calendar, seeing that it doesn't quite line up. Would you go through this and make sure that we have it up to date? Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, public comment, anything for the good of the order? Okay, we'll move on. Staff reports, airport. We're 5 minutes ahead of schedule.
And we're gonna keep gaining time, boys.
So don't blow it, Bob.
George. No.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So, how was, yeah, how are you?
Say
You
hello.
go, Bob.
Morning.
How are you?
I am doing well.
Good. I don't believe we had any documentation from you ahead of time.
Correct.
Okay.
I've been busy.
That's fine, no problem. Jay asked me, Commissioner
I
Prince
thought maybe
asked
I
me,
just
and I
didn't-
said,
I
no, I
didn't
don't
find
believe
it or
so.
something.
And I thought I'd better make sure. Hello, Mr. Hart.
Hey, Art.
Of course, we didn't have a staff meeting in January, so I thought I'd bring you up to date a little bit
Okay.
on what's going on at the airport. In December, we only sold 176 gallons of fuel. In January, we sold 236, and most of that is because of what you see today, the weather.
And smart pilots.
Yes. It has not been conducive to flying lately. Currently, we have 2,924 gallons of fuel.
2,900.
924. That is as of January 31st. We got 2,062 gallons gross fuel on January the 18th, and it was colder than a well-digger could tush.
I've heard that expression.
Yes.
2,000, how many buy it, did you buy?
Well, net was 1962. Gross was 2062. And
Would you care to expand on the difference between net and gross if you're delivering fuel?
yeah,
At the bottom out.
it depends on the specific gravity of the fuel when they deliver it. The colder it is, the heavier it is, and the
More condensed it
more
is.
condensed it is. So that's the net. The gross is what it is when it's expanded, and we get taxed
On the gross.
on the net for everything except for state tax. We get taxed through gross.
And what do you pay for, gross?
No, we pay for
Yeah.
net, and we got a good price, a really good price.
Good.
At our last board meeting, we talked about, we didn't have a quorum, so we couldn't vote on anything, but we talked to bit about keeping our fuel price where it is for now. And the average in the state is $4.62. So we're at $4.55, so we're in pretty good, yes, we're at least competitive, except with Spanish beans, of course, which is so.
What are they now? They raised it $3.90?
Yes,
Gotta get an initiative with the town.
Tank and bring it over.
Yeah, let's go, let's go.
Take the tanker over there.
And we'll sell it for a nickel more.
During the seventies, when the gas force would go
Yeah.
on, people, one gas tank out of gas, one wouldn't, they
Right.
take a gas tank over and fill it up.
I wonder who's subsidizing that? Somebody's paying,
The county has to be,
somebody's wanting to attract people
or somebody is.
And so you guys are working on some initiatives to
Yes.
work with the towns to drive the price down a nickel or so.
Yes. And December the 18th, we had an inspection by Division of Oil and Public Safety, and they found out that our dispenser was off by 74 cubic inches per 100 gallons. You're allowed to be plus or minus 69, and we're 74. So we're a little bit out of tolerance. And there's 261 cubic inches to a gallon, so we weren't off by much. But anyway,
So we don't have to recalibrate or are we?
we did,
You did, then, yeah.
we did recalibrate it. We got it recalibrated on the 9th of January. We are now minus 5 cubic inches per 100 gallons, which bottom line means we're 1/10 of a teaspoon off.
So what you see is what you get.
What you see is what you get. If somebody were to pump 10,000 gallons out of our tank, which is impossible to do, we would owe them 4 cents.
Stop wasting. Would you please?
Yeah.
Stop wasting county money.
Yeah,
4 cents every
Tongue
thousand
in cheek, of course.
yeah.
No, that'd be 10,000 gallons.
or 10,000. I mean, hey,
Yeah, we can only hold, what, 6?
you know, 6,000.
Well, no, we can only.
We can only do 4.
5,400.
5,400.
Let's,
So that's like 2 teaspoons or whatever it was.
for some reason or another, and I'll clear this up with the accounting folks, we're still getting charged for the CenturyLink fuel line, which we do not need.
You just canceled that.
Okay. I just got the
How much
bill.
was it? $100 or something?
That was $53.49 a month.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's
So you figure how many teaspoons of fuel?
50 bucks buys about
Who's the funny guy?
10 gallons. That's 10 gallons.
He's on a roll this morning.
Yeah, I believe Vernon Roth, our IT person, told us yesterday that he had taken care of it.
okay, good, good. I talked to Vernon several times this week, and I think our website is pretty much up to date, although I'd like to get some new pictures for the website. Those are very old. You can still see our courtesy car parked out in front.
Send you a few of the construction going on. That'd be interesting. I think.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Taking
And
quite a few.
yeah, all our fuel system, our dispenser, and our card reader is different now. So anyway, when the weather gets better and
In August.
Yeah. Sometime in September when the leaves change.
Yeah. we'll get
The one day we have fall and summer.
and get them some new pictures, and we got to get our approved minutes up to date. It's my understanding we're not as bad off as some folks, but we're in pretty bad shape where that is. We did want to talk about a couple of things. Snow removal and the courtesy car.
Okay, before we move on to that, may I comment here?
Yes,
I'm on
sir.
your website, not the county's website. And it looks like you have 2 sets of minutes posted for
18.
2018.
How long do we have to keep those on there? Can we get rid of the 2 years prior?
I'm not aware that
I don't think
there's
there's a,
any time, so I know you've got, let me go back, sorry. 15, 16, 17, and 18, I'd say 3 or 4 years worth should be posted. I don't know how long we keep them at the county,
From what I can see, I've looked at,
you put these in a drawer anyway, don't you?
yeah,
It's just not on the public, and you can go back if you had to.
yeah, we've got them all,
So that's not a big deal.
we just gotta get them out there and posted.
Brenda?
If you bring me, or, well,
Yes.
I'm volunteering Meredith. If you bring the
Give
hard
Brenda-
copies, she can scan them in and upload them.
Yes. That was my understanding
yeah,
also.
so, and obviously you're aware of that,
Yes.
so the sooner we can get that done, the better,
Yes.
because, we're kinda committed to keep these minutes posted.
And we will do that.
Okay, thanks for letting me interrupt you.
Anybody else?
And
your meetings are posted on that website. They change, you're keeping it on.
Well, right now we're leaving our,
Here's copies.
I got
Okay, all right.
the rules.
Yep, and the benefits. Yep, looks great. I've got extra copies if they need it.
Okay, anyway, talk about snow removal and courtesy car. We did, come up with some proposed rules, and this is just our first rough draft, and I wanted to give you all a copy
For
of
your
that.
meeting.
Thank you, sir.
If and when we ever do get a courtesy car, these are, like I say, just rough drafts of what we think the rules ought to be.
Thank you.
If anybody is free to comment or,
You're gonna discuss this at the next meeting.
yes, add to or subtract from.
Which is, what date is the
21st.
21st of this?
Yes, third Thursday of the month.
Right.
And we also, thanks to Trey, came up with some, what he thinks would be some benefits for the county and to the towns and to the airport for having a courtesy car.
Just a lot of thought. Your pickup truck, is it just one bench or is it how many people?
Crew cab or
It's not a
not?
crew cab.
So how many people could you put in that if you filled it with, in the front, of course, I don't want any people back.
Well,
Can you get 5 in?
probably get 5 in
Okay, thank you.
Thinking ahead there, huh, Jay?
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
His fix was $260.
Nice,
Right.
Good.
nice.
It was, if you don't mind, just so I can let you go. Art just wanted to let us know that the repairs on his truck were minimal, $200 and some odd dollars, $260.
Good deal.
And it seems to be at the moment running okay.
Who did it? Was it down below or?
Yeah, I had to take it down there.
Thank you.
Was it, electrical? Well, good, that's great. Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Thanks, Art.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's
You
fine.
must have asked him to come in, huh?
I did.
All right.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's no sense keeping him long term. If you could just give a 2-minute, took me longer to explain it.
Anyway, that's what we came up with for some proposed, rules. And I know, last time we had a courtesy car, there were some serious problems. And that's because we didn't have a list of real good rules.
And we weren't managing the field.
And we, yeah, that too. And when I first came on board, we had a courtesy car, and they gave me the pieces of paper that everybody had to sign, and that was it. So that's where we were at the time, and now we're in a different place. And we don't have a courtesy car, but we would like to have one.
Mr. George, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, sir.
The car itself, I'm not overly concerned about, but there's always upgoing upkeep, gas, and all that kind of stuff with it. Would you consider, your board consider, maybe increasing the price of fuel by a few cents
We have
and
increased.
allocate that for upkeep and maintenance of a car if you have one?
I think that is a very good discussion to have with our board, and that is one subject that's gonna be on the agenda for our next board meeting.
Just thinking.
And that's one of the reasons why we left our fuel prices where they are, is because we are generating, with current fuel prices, a pretty good profit on fuel sales. And I have called around to different airports. Matter of fact, I called 4 yesterday to ask them, and to be quite honest, the last courtesy car we had, we never had to buy fuel for that vehicle.
Everybody volunteer.
Well, that was, some of the rules was,
Bring it back full.
bring it back with the same amount of fuel in it as you took it. And the pilots are pretty good about that, and sometimes they even donate a little bit of money. But I did call Kit Carson, I called Blakefield over in Delta, I called Fort Morgan, and Mineral County over in Crete on their courtesy car, who owns them, and how do they handle their insurance. And all of them are either owned by the city or the county. That's who owns them. And Kit Carson, they told me that CTSI is still handling their insurance on the car, but it's never come up as a discussion. I think they're keeping it fairly quiet because over in Mineral County, over in Crete, they're sort of like our county, and CTSI said they would not cover courtesy car. They buy their insurance through Gallagher. And over at Fort Morgan, it is a city-owned car, and they've got 4 of them, apparently. And they buy theirs through a private party, but
Insurance?
yes, but the city pays for it. And over at Blakefield and Delta, theirs is bought through an FBO who's on field. So the FBO buys the insurance, but the county reimburses them for it. But anyway, that's what I have found out so far.
Can I ask a question? The impression I'm getting is that most municipal fuels, kind of like the one we have, smaller,
Yes.
unregulated, have a courtesy car.
Yes.
It just
All
makes
over the
sense.
nation, and it enables them to get into the towns.
Yeah, I understand why, it just makes perfect
Hotels.
sense, but it's flying in, and then stand there with your thumb out on 69 trying to get into town to get lunch. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Unless we had a taxi service or something,
Yes.
which because we don't.
Well, yeah, and that's why I picked these particular airfields, is because they were airfields that did not have a taxi service available. Much like our town, we don't have taxi, we don't have Uber, we don't have those type things. So I was thumbing through our directory and found some counties that were rural, and they didn't have rental cars or taxis available, but they had courtesy cars, so that's why I
So,
chose these
I'm
counties.
sure you've looked at your budget. Have you found anything in your budget that would help you purchase a car?
The only thing that we have that generates money is leases for property and fuel sales. And fuel
It's already allocated.
is about the only place, if we keep our fuel prices. If we keep our fuel prices competitive, I think we'd be able to handle at least the insurance and repairs and things like that. And we do have
And you're looking at other money-making things.
Yes.
You know, even if it were
we
snacks.
talked- We were talking about
Food service.
the magnetic signs on
The
the
magnetic
side.
signs to advertise the business.
Advertising businesses here in town, the hotels and restaurants and stuff like that.
Actually, get the restaurants to kick in
Right.
$10 or whatever.
And charge them $10 a month or
Mhm.
$100 a year or something like that.
Well, without being specific, I'll just go on record as saying I think a courtesy car would be an excellent idea for the airport. How we do it, where we do it, where the money comes from, it's up for discussion, and I think the concept is certainly a good one.
Your next meeting, you also ought to take a look at, you've looked at insurance companies, get some prices from them. I know
Yes.
Progressive is one that deals with aviation kind of stuff. They're kind of far out with different
Why
things.
would it
that
not
they
be covered under our
do. It could be. He was
general
just,
policy?
it could be. Then we need to check and make sure that's the case and balance the cost.
Yeah, CTSI, as I understand it, doesn't wanna cover this
Yes,
because
correct.
they're not county employees driving the vehicle.
Right.
So
Oh,
CTSI
I see,
is not
I
a
see,
player.
sure, that would make sense, I understand that.
We'd have to find private insurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea either. Certainly there's some concern about, is the county gonna fund this whole idea?
Yes.
Or is the airport going to fund this? Obviously
Yeah.
by some of the things you just mentioned.
Or it's how they base their budget. You can, you know, if you're gonna drop something else, add some support to when we approve budgets we look at.
Yeah, we're, matter of
But it
fact,
needs to include the whole picture.
as a matter of fact, next month, Jackie, Hobby's gonna be on our agenda, and we're gonna talk about the cars that are parked there and possibly charging a fee,
Yeah.
a yearly fee for doing that.
And I was talking with her too about it, and in fact, other airports, when, even in Denver Centennial, you know, I know it very well, and these others, they do charge you a fee to have a car, have your ability to have access to the airport and use it. And if we're leaving a car there, when people do that, they have the parking for people that fly out of there and spend weeks away.
Oh, by
And
the
it's a
way,
fee.
just for your information, that, less than beautiful trailer is gone.
I was gonna ask.
Geico ticket?
I noticed this morning from
Myself.
here that the car is also gone.
Okay.
Now, it wasn't parked on our property, it was parked over at the storage area, but it's gone too.
Well, the agreement was, or the intention was it would be gone by the 5th, so good they
They did it.
do that.
It is gone. And we also wanted to talk a little bit about snow removal. And we talked to Road and Bridge about snow removal, and by and large, they do a fairly good job. But there was some concern about some of the ice areas that were being left out there. And I think Lynn took the road boss out there and showed him and explaining to him that airplanes have small tires and they don't like a whole lot of ice. And their brakes are not the
Break a
same.
nose wheel.
Yeah. And their brakes are not the same as on your average Cadillac. So there are some issues.
He said he talked to you yesterday, we talked to him.
Yes.
I saw, I think he understands
Yeah.
pretty well what you mean.
And I saw him again yesterday. And a couple of weeks ago, the area, they cleaned the runway and the parking area really well. They did a good job on it. But around the fuel farm was a total disaster.
Couldn't get in there with an airplane.
You could not even get close to being able to buy fuel, and we moved the snow there, and we've got some new members on our board now that are more than willing to get out there and.
I was gonna ask you, we have a snowplow out there, does it work? Can you make it work for little things like that?
Yeah, we're trying to get it going again. I think it's probably gonna need a new battery.
And some warmer temperatures.
And
To get an engine heater on
Well, no, I mean to work on the vehicle.
Oh.
It's out and it's exposed right now.
it, can you put it in the other side of the,
yeah, that's where
Once we get it running.
Yeah.
okay.
And apparently, The battery is a new battery, we just bought it about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. And there is something that is draining that battery. And I'm gonna talk to Bob McDonald, who is also a good friend of the airport.
Right.
And he happens to be an electrician, and see if maybe he can't run down where that's coming from. So when we do put a new battery in there, at least it'll last. But yeah, those little areas we can take care of. But one of the things that I'm adamant about is we're not gonna move snow from in front of people's hangars. So that's a non-starter.
Sure.
Because of
2 years of getting it fixed.
Yes.
I remember that project.
Yeah.
So we are gonna
Just with
stay
a-
away from other
with a lawnmower.
people's hangars. If they talk to us and give us permission, and they wanna put it in writing for us to remove at least,
Doesn't gain much.
yeah, so, anyway.
And your concern is what?
Somebody
Knocking into a door.
knocking into a door, damaging their hangar, and them suing the county for getting it fixed. We had that problem a couple of years ago.
A couple of years ago, someone hit Dr. Smith's hangar. It wasn't a major thing, but it took over 2 years to get the repairs done.
I'm
For a
very
variety of
Tom
reasons.
helped put this tin.
So I
That was
agree with-
mowing, that wasn't plowing snow.
Right.
But that's
Same-
why I
same-
said
Same thing.
if you had,
If somebody hits
issue
somebody's
with-
hangar,
Gotta be fixed.
it causes a problem.
We could get Gwen in there and go up there.
Yep.
well, after our conversation with the road boss, Gary Hyde, yesterday, sounds like he is willing to continue to plow that. Obviously, you talked to him as well about the fuel dump and.
And changing the blade, that's what gonna skim
Yeah, and the other thing on our truck, there are some things we can do to improve it. We need to get a rubber thing to put on the top, because when you're plowing with that
comes up
truck,
onto the windshield then.
the snow comes up over the top of the blade and makes it very difficult to see, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I would guess maybe Road and Bridge has some conveyor belting that would
I'm
work
sure.
on that.
Yeah.
Or flats for a tire.
I certainly sensed yesterday that Road and Bridge Department feels like it's their responsibility to plow snow on the runway and,
Yeah. So anyway,
so.
that's all I've
And I
got.
specifically asked him if he expected to charge the airport for that, and he said no.
Great.
So, yeah, from my perspective, back to that rental car, if you could come to the commissioners with an estimated price of the car, estimated price of insurance, estimated cost of the county owning that, then I think we can move forward with a conversation.
And we will,
Conceptually, we like the idea.
yeah, okay, and we will get some prices from some of these insurance companies and see what.
And obviously, we have an insurance company right here in town too as well. So, Trey has a question?
Do the commissioners feel that the retired sheriff vehicle is not gonna be available, and that the airport board should look at possibly donation of a vehicle or having to purchase it?
Both, yeah.
So,
You heard our Nordyke's got an issue.
We
too.
would-
right, but, and it was my understanding that 2 of the sheriff vehicles were gonna be, rotated out. The
Right.
Salida vehicles are ex-sheriff cars. And so, when you ask us to estimate a cost, we can certainly do that if we're gonna go out of pocket and go that way. But it would also be advantageous to us if we could use one of those county vehicles.
Sheriff will be here
Everything's
today
open.
to discuss an item under new business. We can pursue that a little more. I haven't talked to him since initial conversation about those vehicles, so.
And
If we could get placement of one, we could go from there with the expenses of keeping them.
And it appears that there is, one of the board members that's willing to donate a vehicle. Now, I don't know exactly how that would work, as far as ownership and,
Sell it to the county for $1.
yeah, sell it to the county for $1 or whatever, so that the
Write
county
him
would
a
own it.
donation receipt
Right.
for
Yeah.
you deducted.
We're looking
Let
to,
me interrupt you just for a second. Mr. Barr, are you here for the agenda item today? To discuss the
later
agenda?
one.
Pardon me?
The later one with
Yes.
Shannon. Shannon's running a little bit late.
Okay, that's fine. We were discussing, do you know if the sheriff's department is still planning on taking 2 vehicles out of service?
Yes.
And do you think, I don't know the vehicles, do you think one of those could function as a courtesy car at the airport or not?
How big's their maintenance budget?
Well,
Oh, I'm serious, they both have.
it depends on how many volunteer mechanics they have.
230,000 miles, and that's why we're rotating them out.
Right.
You know, they need repair.
It's up to you guys to analyze the vehicle and think about what the cost are. Think about it.
They're not rotated out yet, because we're still waiting on getting the other one put back in the
Right.
fleet, but that's kind of where we're at.
But you got all the records on how the maintenance has been,
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
the
they
costs
were-
are, so you guys could take a hard look at
Yeah.
it.
They were all bought new, it just
Right.
how many miles?
230 roughly on both of them.
You change the engines out in either one of them,
No,
so, and transmissions,
one of them's had a transmission.
so take a
But-
hard look.
Sounds like it may be a possibility, something they could look into, the airport. Okay, thank you. Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
All right, very good.
Good job.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, on the 21st.
Not a good week for me to move a table, apparently.
Okay. Once we'll get it, sooner or later.
How many chairs do you guys have down there typically for your conference room?
I think we counted up 17 the other
I was
day,
gonna say half a dozen anyway.
Yeah, well,
plus
yeah, it's 6 or 8.
plus the little ones. Which
We have some surplus office chairs in the basement. If you get that conference room, I would think that commissioners would entertain a conversation about utilizing some of those because we're replacing those in some of
Okay.
the offices. I think
Yeah.
there's 5 or 6 down there.
Gonna give away my budget.
No, I wouldn't give away your budget chair.
Thank you.
So I thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Bob. Anything else in
give
the
Clint's
airport?
away there.
Okay, we'll move on. OEM, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Better than yesterday.
Yeah.
The sniffles.
Yesterday was rough.
That germ,
The germs?
that germ.
Oh.
Let them come.
See you guys.
See you 3.
Had the little sniffles been
Yeah.
going on for a few days.
Ah,
Not like some of the people around the building.
Your show, Cindy.
Okay, well, I'll bring up to date on the grants, 2019 Homeland Security grant. It goes in a little bit later this year. That's money we can't spend till 2020 if we get it. But right now, the only thing that I've got on top is we'll probably resubmit Art's Corner vehicle again. They weren't in favor of that project last year, but they have been buying vehicles through that money. See, my spell check isn't working on my program. The 2018 grant, the fence, the approval's in from the state. We're just waiting for the approval from Homeland Security, and that got pushed out because of the shutdown. Shannon said yesterday that because of the AT&T tower that we're not looking to start installation until after that anyway. So there's time on that grant. It won't be an issue. And then I've got some money left in MRC and VIPS grants, and we were looking at putting that towards radios, whether it's the programming costs or the extra batteries as we move ahead in the radio projects. So we've been working with several agencies, Search and Rescue, EMS, and then Shannon and E911 trying to get some different grants in for radios, so we've been talking to Motorola, and now we're talking to Kenwood because of the way the Motorola pricing is, so.
We signed a letter of support for BTR radios through PAP this morning.
Oh, good, okay, yeah, I know that's gonna be floating around agency to agency to get those letters of support in. The EMS and search and rescue are going for the, provider grant, which is a public health grant, and that one's due on the 15th, so that's the quickest one. And then I think the one Chris is working on, Jack, is due March 1st.
Hey Cindy, on the 2018 grant, you show security, was that 0, and then what's the 30? Breaking your code here, you have 0 and 30.
Sheriff's office.
Sheriff's office.
Yeah, but what's the 0 mean? $0.
That stands
So
for
is
Sheriff's office.
Sheriff's office.
Oh,
Abbreviation.
Ah.
Sheriff's office.
thank you.
And while we're at that,
Good grief.
VIPS,
I didn't.
VIPS,
VIPS, MRC is Medical Reserve Corps, VIPS is Volunteer and Police Services, and they are programs under what FEMA calls the Citizen Corps program, so those grants are over there. So your VIPS is your posse, but as far as the actual acronym. So the posse part is pretty easy to justify towards radios and batteries. I don't know if Alyssa will have any other use for the MRC grant, or that I'll even go after any CCP money in 2019. Those are harder to manage because they're smaller grants, but you still have to jump through the hoops of making sure everything is compliant. And before Troy left, this money's for the posse's been around since Rich and then Troy, and then by the time Troy would find out something wasn't approved, and he got real frustrated and just said it wasn't worth his time to even mess with this grant. So I think we'll get it out in radios and just be done with it, unless somebody has a specific project they want me to present. I won't just throw something in, but the CES group knows when we talk about that, and somebody else has project ideas or needs that we have. The light tower we have with the portable generator, that was one of the Homeland Security grants we did. Basically, the only thing outstanding on my income side is fourth quarter EMPG. Every other grant has been paid back in, and my total deposits were $413,000 last year on those grants. The Ready, Set, Go grant, Casey Wood Products has that. That's Kevin Langley out of Florissant. We have 10 vendors show up on the RFP. Got 6 bids all over the map, and we awarded that to Casey Wood Products at about $1,300 an acre. The project scope right now is just 34 of the 50 acres, and there's an extension in, so once the federal government lets us know they're open for business and they've reviewed that, I'll know if that gets extended until April. Otherwise, we're just working to get the 34 treated, and we'll stop where we are.
and you did let that out, that contract.
Yeah, the contract's all done, executed, and he's moving equipment on site today.
Really?
Kevin has a masticator. There were a couple of the vendors that did, and so he should be able to make some short work of some of that.
So it's a $1,300 an acre.
Yeah, and so it's limbing, thinning, taking some hazard trees down, and then they're doing.
You ever see one of those things work?
Yeah.
Man, they chew it up.
Yeah. So it was interesting RFP for me to even have the chance to work with Carrie. Was a lot of fun, but there's a lot of groundwork to get this mitigation stuff moving, and it's something I heard from some of your economic development meetings that people are interested in fire mitigation and getting these projects done, but without the help of my nonprofit partners, I was totally over my head on that one. Other than that, just some of the meetings and trainings. The Citizen Corps Community Emergency Response Team, we use some of that money to do an EMR training, so we've just finished that after 5 weeks on the weekends, and we'll have a CPR class on Saturday, and then we'll be done with that. Folks will be looking to get their national registry credentialing done. Been working on some salamander IDs, the ag and disaster follow-up. We'll do
What's a
our work.
Salamanders, they're cards.
Salamanders, little credentialing
yeah,
cards, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a lot of people had IDs that expired because we're only allowed to print them for 2 years at a time. So we redid most everybody, and I think we'll be working on the bridge next. So yeah, I printed a bunch of those. I've got to order some more materials. WebEOC, you may have got a test the other day to see. We're updating that list so that we have a way to communicate. You'll get those.
I'm assuming you didn't need a response to
No,
that,
didn't
you?
need a response, and it came back where it was undisclosed recipients. I couldn't see it anyway, but Christy Coleman gave me the list of everyone, and so I had to do some shuffling around. We've got, some movement at the fire department, and so I think that one's, as soon as Christy gets that finished, we'll probably do another test just to make sure we get the new folks on it.
So what did you find out on the price of the radios? You said you talked to.
So Motorola, we met with Elder County, came to the last emergency services meeting, and there have been some deals in the past for volume where they brought the pricing way down.
That goes together.
Well, yeah, we're trying to get volume pricing, but as it turns around, the Motorola sales rep, they just came back with a state bid price and
They're pretty hard nosed.
They're pretty hard nosed. It's a good way to describe it.
Monopoly.
So
It is.
yeah.
It
They're
really is.
monopoly market.
So, basically, the EMS and SAR ones were looking at still $2,800 a radio. And I think the initial Kenwood bids are coming in at, $1,800, I think, is.
Yeah, there was about an $80,000 difference in the JAG grant that I'm working on between Motorola and Kenwood. Kenwood includes everything in it, the radio. Motorola wants to charge us for the programming and
Really?
the baud. It's ridiculous.
And I think what they're doing is bigger areas where you're not submitting a grant and they're not on the hook saying they're going to give volume deals. I think
Yeah.
some of these agencies are getting radios for like $1,400 a radio.
Is Kenwood as reliable or is
We don't know.
As rugged?
We've reached out to some agencies. Kenwood been responding to Shannon and I for a couple days. We've reached out to some agencies that recently went with them to see what they think.
Yeah.
Try to get some opinion on it.
Ideally, we'll all use the same portable radio, including
Sure.
fire, and it'll make training
Way.
easier. The sheriff's office will look at bringing in an encrypted channel on their radios, and there's some potential grant money in 2020 for the fire stations. And I'm not sure if it's a FEMA grant. It's supposed to send it to me, but our grants will be, our radios will be 15 years old next year, and they want to start replacing them and helping firefighters, and so this new grant is only for radios that are 15 years or older, and so I have a feeling a lot of people are going to apply for that money next year, but I am trying to get more information on it so our two fire departments are ready. I also sent 3 of my radios out and transferred them to Wetmore Fire and got them reprogrammed. Wetmore Fire was going to pay the bill. Wet Mountain Fire is supposed to give Wetmore 4 more radios on top of that, and we're trying to solve the issue of toning them out versus trying to use code red. They're also looking, Alex is looking at FFRS, and I am responding in some of those other apps, but they cost money, so I'm not sure. He and I have a meeting Thursday morning to kind of go over everything he's working on as far as the code red, the iPods, the FFRS, and other options for Wetmore Fire. So yeah, that's been kind of an effort going on, trying to figure out where we should be.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Question about code red too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that notification county and the 2 municipalities?
Yeah, it's countywide.
So if there was something here in town.
Yep, so, once a year, we update all the landline data, and then cell phone users have to register themselves, and then you can register email too. And then when Alex builds out different groups, he could build a group of everybody in the town of West Fork, everybody in the town of Silver Cliff. He can have predetermined groups set up ahead of time, but then you can also go in and create a group on the fly during an incident. So if you were evacuating everybody in the 600 block, but you didn't want the house where a shooter is barricaded, you'd say everybody in this area except this address, because you don't want them to know that you're sending out the notification. It's got a lot of powerful features, but yeah, it's countywide.
And that has to be, people have to sign up for that annually?
No,
Okay.
they just need to register their cell phone. And then we try to clean up some of those. What happens is a lot of people register their cell phones and then they forget their passwords and they don't delete themselves from the system, and now they're living in Florida and they're calling me up saying, can you take me off this list? I'm not concerned there's a fire anymore.
Right.
So that part's a little bit more difficult to clean up, but yeah, we'll be getting into, I think in March is when we renew the contract, is when we can start looking to clean up some of those phone numbers. And we can do another all-call test like we did in April, because they got rid of the unlimited, or they got rid of the restriction on minutes and it's unlimited now, so I think an all-call test is once a year is a good thing.
There's not an embedded opportunity to unsubscribe. Once we get a call out on code red, it says press any key to hear this message again, press 4 to unsubscribe, or?
I don't believe so. I've never heard that one. But if somebody comes in and tells, sends me an email or leaves me a message, I can unsubscribe them. Yeah, there's a way to remove them from the list.
So, you're a half a person down.
My rock stars in the back of the room.
I know, your star came our star. How's that affecting you, if any, and what's the status?
I think the biggest area it's going to affect me is trying to do some mitigation projects. I'm just going to have to pick and choose and say no to a lot of people. Christy Coleman called me the other day and was trying to get me fired up to work on a project, and I said, yeah, and when am I going to have time to do that?
Is that something that takes specific expertise, or could a temporary person help you, or maybe even a volunteer from the community?
Yeah, I've got one gentleman, I don't know if it'll work out, but I'm recruiting him to help me with the CSF 11, so I've invited him to the meeting. He's a retiree with a lot of energy, and hopefully,
wow.
I'm not sure the personality is going to be quite right, but I'm trying to give him a project.
Good, but you're thinking in terms of getting some help for the specific times you need them. I'd hate to turn services away because you're too thin and, help.
As far as the mitigation, I think that's why I mentioned in a couple of the meetings having a discussion on these PILT funds and who's spending them and how we're doing that, because several people are very interested in spending those. We did do some publishing in Crena Verde once they get their CWPP done and then get their Fireways community done. Some of that funding can be used on mitigation, but I think it can also be used on some of the tanks that Round Mountain wants, or Wet Mountain wants to bury. So that part, might be a nonprofit organization we need to collaborate with. The Middle Arkansas Wildfire Prevention Partnership. We're a member of that. It's 3 counties. It's Pueblo, Fremont, and Custer. They want to go for a grant for about $38,000 for an administrative person to do mitigation. And then the talk at that meeting is if we used PILT funds for the specific counties to do projects, they would have funding to get a project going. And so we've definitely got some money in the pot there. And John Grieve, who's our state forester through CSU, we were talking at the last meeting about if we did this and got the person hired and got the grant, where do they work? And John and I had just had this meeting with Crena Verde, and they won a project, and they got like 19 homeowners that went in. So that might be an opportunity where it's a private-public partnership, and I'd like to pursue that.
Well, don't,
Otherwise,
please come to us if you feel that the county's not getting the services it needs because you're too thin.
okay,
Let us work with you and try and help something. I mean,
Okay.
I want our county protected as much as possible.
okay. Well, and, you know, that being said, I would sort of anticipate, and I know it's your call, but I would sort of anticipate that if we had a big need and an emergency and an EOC, that, there's somebody in the back room that could be activated to kind of help out, because she's sad.
Who's in the back?
We'll call Brenda back in from her new position to do that.
To come help. Or if I'm out of town for the weekend.
This
Well,
middle,
we've got some redundancy.
We're gonna do
That's
what the
good.
county needs, what's
Yeah.
best for the county. Right.
Yeah,
is
so
the Middle Arkansas group quarterly meetings? And how often they meet?
the MOP group,
Middle
yeah,
Arkansas.
it was bi-monthly, but they're trying to go to monthly for right now to get this figured out, how to move forward and, you know, get them into an actual green mitigation. They've been pretty much prevention and education, but they wanna go into mitigation. And I've gotta reach out to Jonathan Bruno and the grant and see, if that's a possibility. But they're meeting monthly for now. They're meeting in Canyon City, and I talked to Amy Daniels, who's the chair of that right now. And I told her I've got some folks up here in Corona Verde that, you know, because they want members to join and to actually run. They need somebody who's going to be a spark plug and run their organization. And I told them if you had the meeting up here, I'd invite these Corona Verde guys, because they might be your spark plugs, but they're not going to go to Canyon. So monthly, the next one's, I think, mid-February. Any other questions for me?
I do not.
You're good, thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
Maybe we're just looking to see when that MOP meeting was on the calendar.
Okay,
For
yeah,
me,
let me know.
okay?
Shoot that date to me when you get it, would you please?
Okay,
All right,
yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.
I
Appreciate
will
it.
text it to you.
All right, thank you. Miss Treasurer. Mrs. Good morning. How are you?
Everybody admits from the south.
How are you today?
Good.
You guys are good? Yep, well, pretty good. Thank you for dropping these by this morning.
On a personal note, thanks for your help yesterday.
Oh, you're welcome. Wasn't much help.
I'm not gonna tell you.
Miss Meredith tracked down a question we had yesterday about reimbursement of fuel used by the fire department through Road and Bridge. So they reimburse directly, I think she said directly to Road and Bridge. So you never see that paperwork.
But Donna does. Theoretically.
She should,
Keeps
if they're
track
getting
of
the
the
vouchers,
funds.
because that's a voucher.
Yeah, I've never seen the voucher on it, but I don't know. Sure we will.
Well, that's an internal one, so how does, that is a good question. Wonder how.
Road and Bridge would voucher it anyway,
It would-
because it would be coming from the fire department.
That's
So
right.
they-
That's right, that's right. We we receive it, but we're not involved in the middle part.
Right. Your office receives it.
Right.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, we receive everything in the county, but, yeah, we're not involved in the billing, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Any unusual anomalies, anything we should bring you could bring to our attention that we're not seeing?
Looks pretty busy this time. Numbers are all good, a lot of money's gonna go out though.
Busy month, huh?
Well, yeah, we had some pretty good collections for the taxes. And, well, no, spend them all.
Well, I guess.
Yeah, some people like to
Get it out of the way and not think about it.
Now, we have second half is due at the end of this month, or first half is due at the end of this month, so.
I'll go ahead and I'll move that, we accept the treasurer's report for January 2019 as presented.
Let me second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the treasurer's report for January 2019. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries.
It was.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. Appreciate it. Anything else? No? Good? Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for keep getting us up on the schedule. Catching us up.
Look how.
With a new hairdo. Looking good.
Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about it.
I like it.
You and my dad, you're the only people in the world.
I like it.
Give me a hard time about it.
Probably
Spoke to your
should say
husband
that.
about it too, but
He likes it.
I told him it was weird.
You're weird.
How you doing?
Good, good.
Good.
Alright, so I guess I'll start by asking if you guys have any questions about my report that might be easiest.
Nope, there's a blank page in it, but that's.
You know what? Let me tell you something about the computer situation. That brings me to a great
Let's talk
segue.
about that. How is that?
It's improving.
Okay.
So we now have great internet service on our laptops.
Oh.
Our desktops we can't get switched over because they're hooked to the server at the clinic. So, I mean, not that we can't, it's just going to be a more tedious process for Vernon.
Vernon said he was working it.
He is working it. But that being said, I don't know how much I'm going to go talk to him because I don't know how much we really want him to work on that. Because, so we ordered 2 new laptops, one for Rhonda, one for myself, and the laptop that I'm using now will just be our backup because it's a little less, the processor's not quite as good for like doing everything. So what I want us to do because of the COOP plan that I'm writing now is just have everything on our laptops, and then we take our laptops so that if we have a giant storm or a snow or whatever, we're mobile and we can just do everything we do from home or wherever we need to go.
That goes up in the cloud or somewhere. Good.
Well, they're going to be we'll be backing them up. We're getting a server of our own over there. I think it's going to cost us like $400,
That's good.
which is totally fine for us to back all of that stuff up. So, so that's where we're headed with that. So just so you know that because my computer literally will not let me the backspace doesn't work to make the clear page go away now. I'm like, how old is this computer anyway? So I'm really excited about that because not only are we meeting a ton of deliverables by doing this update with my COOP plan for emergency services, it's just going to be better for us and like I said, we can pretty much be mobile and work wherever we need to.
Yeah, Vernon indicated you went from 4 up and 4 down to over 40.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty huge.
I know.
We were excited about that.
It's like breakneck speed craziness.
Good.
So yeah, I'm excited about that. So that's the biggest development actually in public health right now. But since I wrote this report, we also have a positive pertussis in Custer County. So here we go. Hey, you stop it. So let's just say our prayers about that because 30% of our kids in school are not vaccinated because they signed waivers. So we can spread this pretty quick. So hopefully we're on top of it and they're, staying home and being prudent with that. But yeah, so the last thing I really want to talk about on my agenda is in developing my COOP plan and rewriting the EOP plan, which is our emergency plan. I realized that our biggest gap is in Rhonda's position, and not in that Rhonda doesn't do a good job, because she does, but in that the depth in her position is super shallow, because she's the only one that does her job. And so if something happens, Rhonda, our administrative assistant, and so if something happened to her, she does a lot of things that we would be kind of hosed. I mean, it would take me a couple months to get back in the swing of things. So I'd like to look at possibly hiring a PRN person. Not only that, but she takes, you know, a fair amount of sick days. So if I had a PRN person that could do her job and be efficient at her job, I would feel a lot better about the depth there. Because we can do, I mean, Beth can do my job, Carmeline can do Beth's job, you know, there's good depth there, but Rhonda does a lot of stuff for health fair that I don't even know.
So, the person you're thinking about, do you have someone in mind?
I don't.
Okay. Would it be hard to find someone to do
I don't
this
know.
on a PRN basis? Because that would kind of be just a temporary job as needed
It would.
at X amount of dollars.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm thinking just a little above minimum wage because it's really, it doesn't take any schooling to do her job. It's just,
Understand?
you know,
It's just training.
it's just on
Figuring
job
out how to
training.
do it, yeah.
So as far as the budget goes for that, we have funds in Vax Care. We're making enough money from our vaccines that we can cover it with that. And as far as our grants go and everything, we wouldn't even need to pull out of our grants. We could just use the money that we're making off of Vax Care. And now we're billing Medicaid as well, so that's going to be even more funds coming in.
Is it an allocated fund of Vax Care? I mean, is it open for you to use for anything you choose?
It is, because we put it in as a line item.
Okay.
So, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea
Consider
to
it.
have
That's an excellent idea.
somebody in the wings.
Let's look at this Trujillo, just a moment ago, thinking, what would we do if she decided tomorrow just to walk away?
Right.
And
Well, I mean, at least
backups
she's
for all
got,
of our positions. Susie.
Susie, thank you.
Susie
Just went right on my brain.
No, I understand, but I really
Yeah.
worry about
Yeah.
if someone, you know, gets a fantastic offer and says, I'm going to the Caribbean with this new billionaire who just flew me down there, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Nobody's permanent.
Right.
So,
So,
North Colony Amish School, is that on the west side of
Colfax.
Colfax? Thank you. Wanted to keep saying Colony. On the
and,
west side.
Schoolfield, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't have the address in here, but yeah, where we're going is, it's like right on that corner of Schoolfield and Colfax.
Bless you.
Little meat packing factory.
Yes, yes. So, I think we have like 20 kids we're gonna do there. And then hopefully that'll open the doors to do some others.
Good. Yeah, I said west side.
South of
West of
Schoolfield and
Colfax.
west. So, that's it.
Good, all right.
Can I ask a question, if I may, please?
Certainly.
I know there's a movement afoot throughout the United States not to vaccinate their children against diseases that have been dormant for a long time. There's been at least a small resurgence of some of those.
There's a weird disease going
Smallpox,
on now.
you know, measles, those kind of things that you're talking about here.
hey, they're almost done.
I would love to think it's just an educational process that parents understand that, you know, you really are doing not only for your child, but for the kid next to him who gets sneezed on, that kind of thing. Do we have, or do you have, or would you consider an educational seminar, something to help parents understand? Now, I'm biased, and I fully say that I feel if we have the medical know-how, we ought to use it, and it could save lives, probably has saved lives, and we probably lost lives from parents who chose not to vaccinate. So I'm wondering, do you have a program? Are you concerned about this? What are we doing about it? Anything? Nothing? And it's fine if we're not. I'm just
No, it's not, I mean,
Parental rights.
there are parental rights and it is a choice.
That's why I'm
And
thinking
this is America.
education is. I'm thinking education's the key to this.
It is, and I know people who are highly educated who choose not to vaccinate their children.
Right.
And that's a choice. That's their choice.
And I understand that, and I respect that choice.
Right. That being said, as do I, completely. You know, I mean, it's my choice
I'm really
to
concerned about
chop my
the kid
hair out.
next to
I want.
I'm really concerned about the child who's.
Right, so that's what we call herd immunity.
Thank
And
you.
a herd immunity
Never heard of that, but okay.
concept, where if everybody else is vaccinated, then I don't need to be because they're not gonna get it, so I'm not gonna get it,
Right.
right? But that's starting to fall to the wayside because more and more people are not vaccinating. And then they are getting pertussis, whooping cough, or measles, you know. Something that we don't even know what is, this thing that's coming through Denver right now that looks like polio.
Yeah, that's right, that's the one I was trying to think.
Yeah. So,
Is the one case you have, were they vaccinated?
no. I looked that up just recently. I just got this morning when I walked in, this report that we have one here.
Well, I'm not trying to make an issue, I'm sure.
No, I agree, and it should be an issue.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly not interested in laws saying you can't
Right.
go to school unless you have it.
Nor am I.
I'm not going there at all.
Right.
I agree with Commissioner Flower when he says it's parental right.
Yeah.
But what I'm concerned about is the innocent person next to the one who chooses,
Mhm.
makes that choice, who doesn't have the choice, and it flows over to them because of sneezing or touching in the school. That's what I'm concerned about.
Sure, I understand that, and I completely sympathize with that. I mean, I agree. And I'm more than willing to do some education. There's actually a class coming up, it's in like Baltimore in May, that I kinda like to go to because it's all about what has gone into developing vaccines, why they're safe, why there's a misconception that they're not safe.
Yeah,
I would
think you're getting the
Mhm.
disease.
I would like to go to that because I could speak more
Budget.
intelligently
It's in your budget.
to people
You
who
certainly have the right.
who are, you know, argumentative about it, I guess, for lack of a better word. But like I said, I know people that are highly educated that know, you know,
That's
and
okay,
they
that
still
doesn't mean you
choose.
can't have a
So-
program,
It's a choice,
that just says,
okay.
here's
Here's
what we
the
know about
information.
diseases that are
Yeah,
going around.
do with it
but
what you will.
FYI, they need to
Here's
be
the
informed
information.
enough to decide to or not to.
Exactly,
That's their
because
right to
for
do.
every one person that is highly educated, there's probably 10 that aren't.
Sure.
And that's
Well,
my
even
job
if you're
is
highly
to
educated, is the
educate
point,
them.
is
Yeah.
to understand what's going on with the disease, so that a highly educated person can make a decision to.
An educated
You can make an
decision, correct.
educated decision, get the facts, then you can make your decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would hope we would address that at the health fair as well.
There will be some information at the health fair. And we're doing the kids' corner again at the health fair, which I guess I should have talked about that. The health fair is scheduled for April 6th. I'll see your smiling faces there, right?
Yes, ma'am, I will respond to it.
I didn't, I will RSVP now, I didn't write it down, I hadn't seen the email.
April 6th.
Been negligent.
See how you are. Oh, you know, one other thing I should tell you about. I checked all the AEDs. I did them myself.
Get them in there.
Saved this county $1,855. Yeah,
Thank you.
by doing that.
What was that, I'm sorry?
I did all the AEDs, checked all the AEDs,
Great.
and by not having the guy come do that from out of town, it saved, well, just in his fees, $1,855. Would have been more than that because he stayed the night every time he came and did it for 2 days, and I did it in 4 hours, so.
Well, we should let you spend the night in Custer County. Oh, wait.
Oh, thank you.
Calendar. Thank you, ma'am.
It's a pleasure every night,
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you.
All
Very
right,
good.
thank
I think
you.
you look wonderful.
Yeah,
You look different.
Jerry said it was his, he likes it, he wanted it.
Yep, he did.
That's for a 5-minute break.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Miss Donna, Miss Gwen, could you guys tolerate us taking about a 5-minute break real quick?
Yes, because you'll be much happier.
We will.
Well, be more patient, more patient.
Certainly will, I promise. I will sit stiller. We're in recess for 5 minutes.
But that one was broken.
What's broken?
Forget that bathroom's broken.
Which one?
Oh, the
Ladies' room on
Yeah.
this side.
Well,
Yes,
he's
you don't
working
forget
on
the
it.
ladies' room's
Oh, he's
broken
working
on
on
this
it.
side.
He is working on it.
Administrative assistant, that's
Me
what
either.
she said.
Oh,
Thank you, Meredith. Didn't mean to surprise you.
Oh, yes. No, you're
Chris is aware that the bathroom is broken?
Yeah, he's
What?
working on it.
Discriminatory.
So during recess, if you want, we can mute this. And put those two buttons in the microphone thing. And then
So I'm sorry I didn't make it to that meeting.
That's okay.
Good grief. I ended up my doctor called me like, well, you today at 1:30. I'm
Yes.
very
We'll come back to order.
So-
Our next item of business is
3 months, so I'm like, okay.
Human Resource Finance.
I figured enough of you guys to be at that.
Donna, good morning.
Good morning. That was only 4 minutes, by the way.
4, good.
Making up time.
On there.
So we'll get
We're
together
getting better.
and
Go back to.
have a meeting scheduled.
I have nothing but
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that report the other day for the handwrittens. Mr. Chris, you all right?
Doing great,
Got
thanks,
that
sir.
under control?
Yeah, I think the toilet break.
Okay, let's visit sometime today too.
What's that?
I need to talk to you sometime.
Right.
For the record, that was Kelly.
Has the job posting window closed for VSO?
It has not, that will be the 13th at 4, and I have 2 applicants at this time.
Perfect.
And good luck picking.
Yeah.
Really stellar.
I love it.
Both
I
stellar.
mean, he said there was pretty good one.
Yeah,
That's
boy,
why.
boy, that, yeah, just, wow.
Local?
Mhm. Really,
When we set up the interviews, we need to get the,
oh,
two local,
That's it.
we promised them that they would be part of the interview process. And I think it's integral for them to be.
and I wanted to know if that should be Bob Dreyer
Randy Knight.
and Randy Knight. Those were the only two I knew.
It's the only two I know, but I'm not
And then-
opposed to if
And then
other,
Roger
The new
Watkins.
guy at the meeting the other day.
Just not say Randy when I'm signing the check, because,
Oh, whew, those,
well, I had a little seizure right there on that first. If you look at it, you go, what's this?
Black Hills one,
Well,
the Black
Oh.
Hills.
well, yeah, that's enough to make a guy go into a seizure for crying out loud. But when I said Randy, I wrote an R.
oh. But does that sound, that would be 7 people for the hiring committee? Or do you want more? I don't know.
You know,
No, that's what we talked about.
that's a
yeah.
lot of
I would
people,
get-
but I think if we did what we've done in the past, write down questions and ask these folks also, write down questions like that, so that we're consistent and maybe not have, maybe the three of us ask the questions that they've submitted, and we could have dialogue, and then at the very end, we could ask if they want to. I just don't want to overwhelm a candidate with 25 people. It feels like attacking me. You
And
know what I'm
I
saying?
feel the same, if the same person asks the same question, it's delivered the same way. And
Right.
so it makes it, I think, even Stephen. But I will ask Bob and Randy if they have, any one thing that they would like to know. You know, if it's blah, blah, blah.
Perfect.
And that
Got
we
it.
could
We don't
integrate
know what
that
it is,
into the
so we ask.
questions.
Right,
on
good.
there.
I just don't want to inundate anybody, but I certainly don't want to leave any of our military out of the hiring process either.
So I will be in contact with them.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
What else is new, Donna?
You know, just really nothing. When would we have the interviews, do you think?
Well, you said February 13th,
Is
correct?
the close of business. Both parties right now have already passed backgrounds based on what their life is at this moment. So I don't need to do any of that part on those. You know, but I could have 5 more that I needed to do a little more
Right.
in depth on those.
I would say soon after, maybe Friday the 16th, would that work?
Pardon me?
Friday the 15th, I'm sorry. Just a thought.
Yeah, I will probably be out of town.
All right. Monday too?
Monday's a holiday,
Well, you're right.
so the 19th, possibly Tuesday.
That works for me.
Commissioner Kanda?
No. It's my wife's birthday.
Heck to the no.
Oh, then you'll
Good
bring the
job.
cake for us.
Yeah. So, let's move it.
Wetmore meeting on the 20th,
That's be a good time.
the afternoon of the 20th,
Sure.
2 o'clock. What do you think, Ms. Dawn?
Maybe
Or
let's
little-
start at
well,
1. Is 1 okay?
If that
Oh, yeah, that's true if you eat.
Wetmore,
Okay.
if that meeting runs long,
And if we have too many candidates that are worthy of an interview, we may have to go a second day or drop it, you know,
That's
even
fine.
We'll
5 or
see.
6
I think
on
it's
there.
fine.
But we keep it, I mean, if possible, just keep it crisp and do the same questions.
We could
because you're
do
not
4
gonna get-
at this way, but you know, you just never know what your turnout will be.
Right.
Okay, 2 o'clock on the 20th.
And I will let you know how it's going along.
and you'll contact those other,
Yes, I will ask them, make sure they're available first, and then I will contact the people that I have so far and ask and try to keep it
Good luck. Get all those people.
that
Oh,
should,
that's
Time.
right.
well,
We
it's
have
really
a-
only 2,
right. And
just 2 people to
Wow.
contact.
oh, what day is
Thinking about-
Roger?
He's here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so he'll
Okay,
be here.
So that works.
perfect. Whew, I thought, oh,
Yeah,
we're already.
Roger's integral, you know, but I really would like the other people's input.
What day did you say they closed the application?
13th.
February 13th at 4.
So will you contact all those people, or?
Yes, I will visit with them and make sure that we're all on the same page before we get too far.
So Roger, Bob Dreyer. Randy Knight. Okay. And then I would guess, thinking out loud, we'd probably bring the new hire on March 1.
What time we decide?
I believe both said March 1, based on the close date of February
That
13th.
might give them some transition time with Roger.
And I believe one is employed and one is self-employed. So it might have to be moved out a week or so past that, but I don't think March 1st could be any sooner than March 1st.
Yeah, okay. All right, excellent.
What time we starting those interviews? Behind here.
2 o'clock.
2.
Once you get that in there, I'll have changed it because no one's
No.
available.
And you, once you do get it solidified, you just shoot us an
Yeah,
email.
I will ship everyone and
Okay.
have us all on the same page.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else?
No,
Um,
I saw you just signed ours, Jack.
yes.
We have a coroner vehicle, then we won't need it, so that's good. That's a good thing.
I'll throw out an account number and you remind me what we were dealing with at 208.
Repairs and maintenance.
What was coming out of there? What were we talking about?
Road and bridge,
Oh, yeah.
the line,
Yeah.
and out of admin. Did Gary take that voucher with you? With him? With you? Maybe went home to Europe.
Nice.
You gave it to me yesterday.
I did.
Yes, sir.
Because my
Talking
understanding is I'll have a letter to
talking about
attach
that?
with that, perfect.
I have.
Oh, I didn't realize the voucher was on the back of it.
Yeah, I put the bill and the voucher.
I
and
noticed
no
it
idea.
last night.
Okay. Did not know that.
Because I wanted your choice, so it's the 2875, 90.
Well,
Do you want to
With a
discuss
letter.
this now?
we're still in the process with that, but yeah, maybe we should just do it right now. Is that reasonable?
Sure.
I'm good with anything. Okay, based on just our conversation last night or yesterday, I put together a letter. I have no idea if this is the tone or what you want it to be. It was more of
You jerk!
I like when you get right to it.
as much as I liked, I wanted to say you've got some heck of a nerve adding an administration fee.
Right.
So, but I'm happy to change. We can scratch. I'll start from
Oh,
scratch if you like.
My name on the bottom.
Well, sure.
Oh, my name
I
on
was
there.
good until I saw
He's
it.
not taking the heat.
It was just the only reason I did
It's okay,
that.
Don.
I thought about that. I thought that about length. First thing I thought was, and I'll give you my rationale behind it. My first thought was, should the 3 commissioners? I mean, if we signed it, Tom Flower chair, we're talking about $345. I mean, is this something the chair needs to write this letter, or the chief financial officer should turn around and go, time out. We're not paying a ridiculous fee.
See, I
that's
thought
kind of
Gary
my
Hyde
thinking.
because it's his money.
And I'm fine with Gary Hyde. Let's just change that to Gary Hyde.
Gary's okay,
Yeah.
but you are too.
My husband
And this
receives a
may
check
not be
from
the
Century
tone you
Link,
want.
but
I mean, I just took my best shot. I mean, it would be my best shot. It was late at night after the Westcliff meeting, so.
I think it's good enough. I like it, okay.
Yeah, I do too, until the second to the last.
It's in, yeah. And then they'll, and it's polite yet firm, and it's a
on
good
this.
one.
And you've not burnt any bridges if we have to pay the
Right,
admin after?
you're not screaming.
And that's why I said, do not hesitate to contact me the last line, because if you have, maybe we have an agreement with them that says, we will pay this thing, and they go, excuse me, you've agreed to do this in the past, and I would say, let's just pay and move
We
on.
would just
And
do
Gary's
it.
I don't
been
know.
communicating with him, maybe it's right that he sends this letter.
Then it was, because it was at his end,
Sure.
and he has the dog in the fight, because it's his
Yeah,
budget.
well, and he knows, and he's accepting responsibility to be screwed up, or paying the bill, but we didn't get notice.
I admitted that
Yeah, we're gonna do it, so.
we're gonna fix it. We did it. I just don't like $345 for nothing.
Yeah, I certainly don't have any issues with the tenor of the letter. I mean, I like the first sentence. Full and final, this is it. I believe, and somebody certainly smarter than me can correct me in the back of the room, but I believe CenturyLink is one word with capital C, capital L.
Is that not what I did?
That's how I write it on here.
Yeah, it's capital
Yeah,
C,
okay.
capital L, so
And
we
we
can
probably
make
need to
that
change
correction.
the L to capital, if you wanna use this.
And then I would ask the commissioners, do you feel like a commissioner or commissioners need to sign this as an added hammer or not?
No.
You know, that was a
Gotta
big
give them a
debate
chance
me.
to respond,
My first-
because
yeah.
then we hammer.
It's kinda how I
You
felt.
gotta hold
I kinda
ground
felt,
back.
first I put your name, when I first wrote it, I put your name down as chair. And then I said, you know what, this is $345, I don't want it to appear that we're being petty.
Well, and you gotta
Nick
have them
Lamont.
understand, we have a county government here and a county process, and we have people that are responsible for doing things. It's not all, everything doesn't bubble up to a commissioner.
Maybe they come back with
They
a
need to come
very
back.
legitimate
Then we
reason
get
why
involved.
we should pay it.
Sure, then we get
If that's
involved.
the case, we go, let's just pay it because it's the right thing to
Sure.
do. So,
We gotta let
at this
people do
point,
their
we don't know
jobs.
that.
Right.
So I'm okay with Gary signing it, but I'll do it, I mean, any way you guys want it, it's fine with me.
Yeah, if this was just an invoice, I wouldn't have even asked the question. It's not an invoice, this is a claim.
It was a
filed
claim,
against
but
the county.
you know, I
Yeah,
agree.
they hyped it up once they
Right.
They
chose
should have,
that
if it had come
method.
in normally without that crap, and Gary said, well, yeah, we screwed up and pay it, that was within his prerogative to do. It was the right thing, but this is where it is. It's good.
It's different.
And then my second question is, should this letter go to CenturyLink or should this letter go to JNR?
Copy both.
If you look at, and I looked at this carefully.
And that's why I thought you ought to
There's
probably take that with
multiple
you.
things here, and I appreciate you doing that. First of all, the remittance
Right.
goes to Seattle, Washington, but the claim is Monroe, Louisiana.
Right.
I
It's
felt
a
we're
CenturyLink.
sending this to, it's both CenturyLink.
Right.
So my feeling was, let's send it to Monroe, because that's where the claim is.
Yep.
And
Perfect. I thought Monroe was their billing at Seattle, so that answered my
so that's
question.
why I did it that way. But
Exactly.
again,
And they both
whatever you
need to
go
get
with,
that's
the
exactly what I
office,
was-
both offices.
I was going to suggest that I thought we were dealing with the claims office.
And I
know
put
what you have.
every number they had regarding. Just
Exactly.
so that if they can't find it, shame on
Right.
them.
I would move that we authorize signing the check for the $2,875.98 and including the letter as written by Commissioner Prince to go along with that check.
Second,
With,
as corrected.
with Gary Hyde as the signatory.
Gary Hyde is the signatory.
And changing CenturyLink to capital L's. You are so good. The shining star.
Probably already done, right?
It is, it's already done.
A discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries. We got that taken care of.
And I will take the letter over and I can have Gary sign this as well as that and then get it in process.
We'll see how we go.
So they're getting ready to
Just,
print that on that. Perfect, thank you, Ms. Donna. Appreciate that.
thank
I think it's an appropriate way to go. Feel good
It
about
is.
that. Okay. Or the battle of who's gonna go first. Motion to adjourn? Oh, no!
Next
Good
victim.
morning, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
So I've been here a month.
Yeah, can you believe it? January 2nd.
Is it what you expected?
Amazing.
Yeah, about what it was. Yeah.
The weather, what you expected?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, I imagine Creed had.
Creed's a lot colder.
It gets colder up there.
Yeah, not as windy, but you know.
Is it windy?
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. It's been mild this year.
yeah,
Yeah.
brace yourself.
It only gets worse.
So your newsletter, did you mail that out or?
Not yet. I was talking to Diana about the best delivery method for that, so she has some email contacts and yeah, just clean around. 4-H newsletter is also coming, so just wanted to tackle both adults and youth audiences. So there we go. So, any questions about my letter?
Look good.
Okay, great. Tom, you said.
Are you talking about the newsletter or your
Oh,
report?
either.
Okay, I was
Report or
just
letter.
talking about earlier. I was going over your newsletter again. I looked at it when I first got it, but
And it's nice to have one
I
go
got it,
on.
I got it, I didn't review it, I apologize.
It's all about energy, so, you know.
I remember glancing at it, and I didn't realize it was yours, I thought it was just one of those.
That was another piece of
people.
literature.
I will be better in the future.
I can, not
This is
include
my
it in
fault.
there.
Totally my fault.
Okay.
good. Yeah, maybe you could share with us the gun storage.
Oh, sure,
talked
yeah,
about.
so Shooting Sports has about 15 guns, air rifles, shotguns, pistols. All of those are for the Shooting Sports kids. And so those are stored downstairs in a safe in our extension little storage place down there, and we moved them in. I always get his Mike.
Yeah, it's Mike Halpin, no R. Yeah.
I'll
Hairpin.
I know. I will take that
Yeah,
R
I
out.
saw it.
I even had his card, and he's aware. Those will go out separately. The Shooting Sports instructors will check them out for this season, so that's March to August, and then they'll be in charge of that. But I just wanted people to know if they saw cases going in and out, the ammo will be checked out separately, so there won't be any concern about that. And then we also have 12, I think, bows downstairs as well, but not as big of a concern, I don't think.
Are they all the same?
The bows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Outdoor Buddies donated that last year, the year before, so yeah, and then we, only Diana, I, and the instructors will have that code, so that's kind of a safety precaution for us.
I want to come back to that, but I also want to ask you, well, let me ask you this question because I think it pertains. So in your letter, you said you were signed up for instructor training in March. Instructor training for?
Shooting Sports.
Okay, wow,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. And then secondly, the meat quality assurance, your third bullet into a March 5th. Do you have a time for that?
Yes, we just got that yesterday, so it's 5 to 7 at the South Club.
Ah.
Uh-oh. That did not sound like that was it.
Yeah, I sat in a meeting the other day with the president of the Saddle Club, and we scheduled a meeting on Tuesday, March 5th at 6 o'clock
Oh.
to meet with their board of directors on the strategic plan. So you might contact
We got
George Coons.
Okay. Dorothy Neva had confirmed that that's.
Okay, she probably was not aware of this board meeting that we scheduled the other day, so maybe just follow up on that.
Okay.
But currently, you're scheduled on the 5th at 6 o'clock, or 5 to 7, you said?
Are those on the website when they're finalized?
We just put them on Facebook. I did send them to Vernon to do the county update. I've never been to the South Club. Is there space to hold two canoes?
There's plenty of space, but the acoustics are not very good, so.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean we couldn't move that board meeting for the Saddle Club here or somewhere else too. So, do you have George's number?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
He is gonna be gone mostly between now and then, so I would recommend maybe you try to get hold of him today. He was in town yesterday.
He's leaving this afternoon.
He's leaving this
Okay.
afternoon.
I will call him.
Yeah, because he's going south,
All right.
way south. Yeah, so, and you might mention that, hey, I spoke to the commissioners, and I would be amenable to moving that board meeting wherever. I don't think it matters. We needed to. Good. Okay, anything else, Brian?
Quick question, Tom, this is off the wall, but in the strategic planning meetings we've been having, part of it is, improving kids' sports and
Mhm.
fairgrounds and event centers. How many acres does the county have for the fair out there, and how many acres are the Saddle Club own anything, and they lease in county?
Saddle Club owns almost all of it.
All of it, right? So about how many?
County, I've got that map, but, I would guess the county owns 2 or 3 acres at the most.
That's what I was
Saddle
thinking.
Club owns all the property, the county just leases
Oh, it's a
the
county lease.
buildings,
Okay.
from the Saddle
Yeah,
Club.
and that's,
And that's only the
Technically
area that's the pigs and arena and the thing, or the
The
sale
barns,
barn.
yeah.
Reason I ask is, because I've been asked a couple of those questions by the fair board people, and they're wondering how to plan. So it sounds like if the Saddle Club, if we're gonna do any, it's not county owned, but it's a private Saddle Club, we'd have to be able to, how we include all the things that are out there, including the Saddle Club events, and the rodeo and all that as part of the bigger picture when they're thinking.
Definitely, and as far as 4-H goes, we'd love to have one space where all the 4-H stuff
Sure.
can happen.
And that's stuff that you guys need to be talking about.
Yeah.
so the county owns everything south of this blue line.
Okay, so it's a
Including
strip.
this.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize
So the
that.
county
So
does own a little chunk of that.
Chunk of
south
that
the
up
border.
here.
Oh, that's part of this there,
Yeah.
but basically where
Yes,
the
that's
buildings
Where the
are,
bill-
yeah, yeah.
And this is Saddle Club owned buildings here where we're leasing that from. Right, that would have to be part
No,
of it.
I thought
those are
those
not
were
Saddle
ca-
Club,
I
those
was
are
So,
gonna say, I
so the
thought
county
those were
goes
county
this way
buildings.
too, huh? Okay.
No.
Well,
They just own the buildings, and they're
Correct.
leasing the
Oh,
ground
okay.
that the buildings are on. They have a 100-year lease, I think, don't they? Isn't that a, yeah.
All right. Okay, so that, yeah, that's good. That's good to know. We've got a lot of room here to do things with if the Saddle. If it gets a big deal about sporting stuff,
Yeah.
shooting arrows and that kind of archery.
Pretty exciting to come in when they're talking about all those parades and events and
She
stuff.
has this map here too, doesn't she?
I'll come down.
Yeah, and you probably, did you get that from
I
TV or
I
from
asked,
Vernon?
Vernon to print that.
Yeah, so you
That
can
meeting
play
the
it
other
from
day.
Vernon, yeah.
I've got
That's
an
good
extra
for
one
all
here
your
for it.
thinking ahead stuff and how
Yeah.
you, and working with the Saddle Club and what they've got planned.
And now that I think about it, we probably need to include you in that strategic
I'd love to be a
group.
part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you ought to be going there.
That February 5th will be the next meeting unless it gets changed.
No, it's, February 5th was yesterday.
March.
March.
Okay. They're all running.
Tom had
together.
5th on his mind, a 5th on his mind.
That's MQA, right? February or March 5th, yeah. So,
And
that
that's that
strategic plan.
simultaneously.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm supposed to be
All right.
trained on how to run MQA. Then.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't suggest missing MQA.
Yeah,
That'll
yeah.
get you in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will try to remember to include you in that
Great, I would like that.
email string.
Yeah, and if you guys have any other questions, I just have a few comments.
I do not.
Okay.
How we treat you?
Huh?
How we treat you?
Oh, good, good. I just gotta say Diana's awesome, so,
Good.
she's, and Tom, thanks for always checking in, I just appreciate that. Just one thing, March, I hope to have appointment list for you for the advisory committee.
Yeah.
We're looking at the bylaws where we have 5 people they're still within their term, so they agreed, yes, let's go forward with that, but we're still looking for some people. So if you guys have any ideas, I would really love that. I don't know very many people in town, so specifically a small business owner and then a community builder kind of person. So those are
Jake Shy already on your deal?
Jake Shy. No.
He's the guy that's working on the strategic planning, and he's kind of pushing hard on event centers and things for kids. He's a farm, he runs a feed store,
Okay, so
and he's a
this way.
rancher type.
Yeah, so those are just some people that we would like to fill specifically for those slots, and then, some other people, because I think the bylaws allow for 9.
Okay.
So. And hopefully I'll have a list for you in March, but if if you guys are comfortable, those 5, I would just like to get started, and then we can appoint people throughout the year as they become available.
Yeah, I spoke to Mary Gump yesterday. Very pleased with having met you, and
Yeah,
yeah,
good, yeah. She
spoke
seemed like
very
a-
highly of you.
Oh,
So,
she seemed nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
great gal.
Perfect timing, Shannon.
Okay.
So, yeah, you know, the Shies certainly have been involved in 4-H, and he's a business owner as well, so that might be
A good match.
So this is a perfect time for me to bring this up, since we're talking about shies. Last night, Brent Bruiser donated to the town of West Cliff a Bill Gillette photograph. Absolutely fantastic. It's sepia, kind of brown. And it's a picture of a horseman, a fellow on a horse, and there's a cattle in the background. Gorgeous. And it happened to be Jake Shies who was on the horse. So,
He's a roper competitor.
so that was
That's what I
my
heard,
way
yeah.
of saying.
Great, that's perfect.
So, yeah, it was wonderful.
donated that for your new
For the new
digs.
building.
Great.
Really nice, and Jake's a nice young man.
Great.
Yeah. He's on
Yeah,
the school board too.
Oh,
So he
okay.
knows the kids.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
So in terms of this report, is there anything else you guys want to see? Is this pretty good?
no, I think that's good.
Don't get frustrated, come talk to us if you have any issues.
Okay.
Do we
I
have different
appreciate
weeds than what you had in Crete?
that. Yeah, not black henbane here, which is nice, but there's a lot of mullein. So yeah.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I'm gonna start this way.
There you go,
Move
we'll
that
go down the
way.
line,
Yeah.
huh?
Thanks.
Good to see you, nice handshake, by
Hey,
the way.
thanks. Somebody told me that's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
it is. And looked us in the eye, and that matters too.
Yeah. See you guys.
Okay, we'll move on. Unfinished business, apparently not. I do not. Mr. Kanda, new business. Discussion of the medical care over in the jail facilities. Welcome, sir. Timing's impeccable.
Good morning. How's everyone?
You missed all the excitement earlier, but that's fine. Yeah. How are you?
Miss Camper, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Doing well?
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
Am I coming up?
sure.
We're missing one county attorney, whether or not you.
I'll sit over here and I'll let
Yeah.
Mrs. Labby get it.
Yeah, Clint's had some shortness of breath, been a couple days in the hospital for testing. They're pretty confident it's not a heart attack, so he was not able to be here yesterday.
I had not heard that.
No, I knew that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good to know, because I was gonna talk to him about a couple emails I received today from our client.
He's out
He's
of
all over
your
that,
friend.
but he may not be doing anything today.
He's out of
Hour.
circulation.
Hour.
I know who you mean.
Yeah, so,
Apparently, we need to have a discussion.
So what's up?
so appreciate you pushing us to the back of the, meeting here. I had another meeting this morning. So I wanted to talk a little bit, and Chris is here as well, and I want to ask Elisa to come as well, so we could give a well-rounded discussion on this. So we're having some challenges. We've recognized for some time that we needed to have some, and I would ask either Elisa or Chris to jump in wherever they think needed, but for some time now, we've looked at and recognized that we need to have some type of professional medical services in the jail due to several reasons. Hopefully, a lot of those are just self-explanatory, but from in processing, typically, when someone comes into the jail, they're in processed, and part of that is a medical evaluation. And I'm not talking comprehensive, the annual checkup, the whole deal. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about an evaluation to review if that inmate is on any prescription medications. Are they supposed to be on any prescription medications?
Are they contagious?
Any special needs, any of those type of things.
Are they safe to be here?
Yeah, are they, right, a good evaluation by someone that's certified, not just not certifiable, meaning a jailer or,
You
you
can
know,
see both.
myself or, you're right.
So full-time or?
So, no, not full-time, and I'll get to that. So, we explored some different options. Chris and I met with NatCor about a year and a half ago. Daniel and one of his nurses, they came up and they did a presentation and they presented us with an offer. And I believe then that was 16 hours a week, which was a little more than we thought we needed, but we were starting there, and I mean that figure came back at like $72,000 a year, which was not feasible. Exactly, was not
that
feasible.
was part-time, huh?
Part-time.
16
yes,
hours.
part-time. Yeah.
I'll do it.
So,
I know, right? Sign me up.
So then,
I know, right?
yeah,
You're gonna
no
need a
doubt.
new public health director.
Yeah. I'll go back to school. Then Chris and I met with Elisa, and this was a while back, to talk about maybe some part-time to supplement in with her public nurse duties. Some counties around the state do utilize the public health nurse in that capacity on a part-time basis as well, just to fill in. And so then what really brought this to fruition, hopefully this is appropriate in here. So we had, if you're not aware, we have all of our jail staff are QMAP certified, which basically trains them on just dispensing medications and doing some of those routine things that happen on a daily basis in the jail.
A QMAP is a qualified medication administration personnel. So
Awesome.
There you go. And so we just recently sent a couple of our jail staff that hadn't been through it yet to the class and came back, and one of our jail staff shared some concerns and wasn't willing to follow some procedures and protocols that we had in place because as much as we tried to avoid it, some of it was in contradiction to some DEA regulations and so forth, because quite frankly none of our jail staff are doctors or are certified to administer medications, and you know, we don't have any options. I mean, if we certainly don't want to face a lawsuit because we're not providing medical service.
Or you're doing
So you get where I'm going with this, right? So I mean, now I'm stuck in this quandary because, quite frankly, if I send a memo out and say, listen, I understand that this is in violation of the DEA, but you're going to do it anyways, and then that person were to report us to the DEA, we could be in a slew of trouble far beyond
not giving somebody the
where we're
medicine.
sitting here today, right? So now I'm caught between a rock and a hard spot.
So what are your options?
I went back and talked to Elisa, and that's what we're gonna propose here. So, and you jump in where you want to.
Before you do that, did you talk to the clinic people to see if they'd volunteer through temporarily or
Yes, no. I like that though. That's pretty funny. Do you do stand up
right
in the evenings, or is this just a daily thing?
What kind of
Yeah,
qualifications are we talking about?
So
Does it have to be a nurse?
has to be at least a nurse.
Okay.
At least a nurse. And not an LPN either, but a registered nurse, because they have to be able to administer meds.
And to do the assessment, the
RN.
intake assessment has to be done by an RN. Yeah.
How thorough is this intake assessment?
So it's, and I'm just speaking from my experience from when I worked at the prison, but it's really just going over, you know, kind of just how are you feeling today? Do you have any complaints? What medications have you taken in the past? What are your diagnosis?
You're not asking us personally, right? Because I want to tell you.
Well, I feel like you should probably withhold that information for now.
Especially since we're broadcasting
Yes,
to the world.
exactly.
And then it would just be my job to, or the nurse's job, I guess I should say, to ensure that we have the medication that they're prescribed, or if we don't, that we can get it within a reasonable amount of time. And then also, if we get somebody up here that is, you know, end stage COPD or even stage 2 or above, I would say COPD, they can't be in this elevation, which is something that we dealt with last week. And so this isn't an appropriate place. You know, they'll have to find some
Diabetes and all that.
Yeah, and just to, you know, to make sure that they understand the fact that sometimes it's better, well, maybe not better received, but at least better understood, coming from a nurse, that you're not going to get Benadryl 4 times a day so you can sleep through this incarceration. Like, it's, yeah.
You would be surprised.
Yeah.
They demand Benadryl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do. They want it 4 times a day if you give it.
And we need to set protocols for that exactly, so that we can just fall back and say.
And we have that. We have some in place, but they've been kind of set by Chris.
So in fairness, we have that questionnaire that asks them the same question she's talking about. The problem is the jail staff, they don't have medical degrees, so whatever the inmate says, they just write down, and we're in that quandary where. I think our biggest issue is assessment, 1, but 2 is the medication consistency. We're not currently passing out any controlled substances, but yet we're still passing out medication that clearly, if a jail staff made a mistake on passing out meds, we could have a serious problem in there. Knock on wood, we haven't so far, but I hate to test the water.
So what's the proposal?
Next step?
What's your proposal? What do you think?
So I'm talking with Elisa. So right now she's 32 hours a week at Public Health. Not that she works 32 hours a week, but that's what she's paid, is 32 hours a week. Meaning she works more than 32. Meaning that she I didn't mean that she didn't work 32. Sorry.
Or is she trying to fill
like
in
so many of us on salary, we find ourselves there long after the workday. So I know she works more than 32 hours a week already, but I went to her and proposed, what if Chris and I and the jail staff think that 8 hours a week would be appropriate, and visiting with Elisa, we thought 8 hours a week would be appropriate in the jail.
Okay. Can I ask a question about that specifically?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have to do this when the prisoner initially arrives? I mean, let's say you arrest somebody at midnight.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Okay, all right.
That was
because I wondered about 8 hours a week. Is it as on call as needed?
That's exactly right. Okay. So 8 hours a week would be.
No, I'm impatient.
So we're saying 8 hours a week on average, right? Because some weeks in the jail is going to be slower, and we're not going to have any intakes, and we're not going to have much review, and then other weeks. We have a lot, right? And so on average, we're figuring about 8 hours a week, and basically that's going to be on call with probably a couple hours a week when she would come in and just review everybody's file and make sure that everybody's getting what they're supposed to. Any concerns that the jail staff may have. If we arrest somebody at 1 in the morning on a Saturday, no, we'll just set a protocol in place where, you know, at 8 o'clock, then that following morning we would call and leave her a message, say, hey, we got somebody in last night, we've already in-processed them, when you can get in, can you come in and review their chart? And then we would just work through those protocols so that, you know, her life isn't completely consumed by the jail.
There is some statute about that I found that, so we have 24 hours from the time they're booked until they have to be screened.
That answers my question, thank you.
So essentially it would be PRN as needed. Again, we would have to navigate through a few requirements.
So budget-wise, is it now $600 a month?
So I don't know what Elisa's salary is and what her hourly rate is, because I don't think that's. I mean, it's something that we would get into more. I wanted to come to you to see if this is something that you think we could possibly fund. Elisa could give you a better idea on what she believes that would cost.
Yeah, we're gonna need to know that.
Absolutely.
Is this related to your PRN administrator person that you were asking about earlier? Totally separate.
Wouldn't have enough training.
No, because that would be just a lay person with
Here's
no.
where my mind was going. you'd be out more than you normally are because you're taking care of jail duties, would your PRN admin person be able to fill in some of the things that you routinely do because now you're out doing it for the jail?
I was going in a different direction, sorry, yeah.
Not really, because everything that I do is, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like at the 3,000 foot level or above, and this is like the 1,000 foot
Got it.
and below that I need to hire for.
I
Does
got
that
it.
make sense?
I
So
got it. You need
everything
someone-
that I do is either making decisions or meetings,
You're the professional.
that kind of
The other
stuff.
person is an admin person. I fully get that.
Yeah, not that they're not qualified to
Okay.
do what I do, but
Well, I'll jump in and say conceptually I really like the idea.
They need it.
I'm always concerned about jailers who are not medically trained being thrust into this medical position. I believe there is liability there, and I agree with that question. So
So-
having a professional do it makes sense.
One other thing I think that we can add as a win for this too is if they're, you know, if an inmate is saying I'm having chest pain or I have belly pain or whatever their complaint is, right now we're just calling EMS.
Right.
Well, if I'm on staff, I can come and say, okay, have a Tums,
Right.
you're gonna be fine. Or
It is an
this looks like a
appendicitis.
bowel obstruction and we need to get you down the hill. Versus just stop it.
But you're right.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I was
So,
gonna
you know, and I'm not sure, I think that those bills are mostly passed on to the inmate, am I right? I don't know that the county pays.
The county's gonna have to start picking up some of that because EMS said that they're not gonna
Yeah,
eat that anymore.
right. So we're
So
looking at
we are
more,
we are gonna have an increase. I mean, if we just look at 8 hours a week, right, that's 416 hours a year. So I did some preliminary numbers, and we had kind of badgered around like $30 an
Yeah.
hour, because that's roughly
that's close, yeah.
what she's making as the county health person. So that's about $12,500 a year. Is what that would cost us. I do think that we would realize some cost savings because she could come in and deal with the, I'm having a stroke or I'm having a heart attack, when really they're just hyperventilating because they sat in their cell until they
Or they want
hyperventilated, or they want meds.
Over the counter.
And so she can counteract some of that. We wouldn't have to call EMS for as many calls. Not that we don't have to, you know, that it would eliminate it completely, but
Right, because you're still gonna, yeah,
There's
call
some
if it's an
legitimate ones
emergency.
that's gonna
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Is this money in your budget?
so maybe. So, I mean, it's, again, it depends on, the true cost I don't know, because I don't know how benefits and retirement, all that will play into that figure, because she's already getting those through the public health arena, so I don't, you see what I'm saying? I think Donna's gonna have to come into that, because I don't know ultimately how much would come out of my budget. At
You could take
12.5
it.
right now, probably I could make that work, because we do have some salary savings. So yes, I think we could. As long as that number doesn't get closer to 20,000.
Additional county cost would then be the benefits.
Yeah.
I don't want to say benefits, the additional expenses that a county would incur by having an employee, if there are even any more.
Yeah,
Because,
see, again,
I mean, I'm not sure there would even be additional ones, or maybe, should we ask, could you help us, or should we ask Donna to join us?
Sure.
We can ask Donna to come over. I think, you know, like you're looking at Medicare and Social
Go ahead and ask
Security,
Yeah, would you please, thank you.
matching. So,
right, because
And
some of those numbers will come up
savings
because
matching.
salary comes up. But also, I mean, to be completely forthright, so I approached Lisa about that because I knew she was only at 32 hours a week, and so, I mean, she's doing, you know, a really good job for the county, and so this also helps her out too from an income standpoint as well by adding that additional 8 hours a week. So, I mean, it's a win for her, I believe.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
win for us.
So, let me ask a question. I know you never worked a 32-hour week since you've been here. I know that you do 10 times, well, far exceed that,
Like 35
that
at least.
At
the
least.
entire county
Yeah.
is grateful.
Pretty
Okay,
nice.
that being said though, considering the workload you have now, could we fit in an additional 8 hours in the jail?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's-
Yeah.
That's fine, you don't even have
And
to explain.
especially when we just do it
You tell
kind
me
of
you
per
can,
diem, I
you
mean,
can.
you know, as needed, whatever. It's not like I'm gonna have to spend, clock in 8 hours every Friday.
What's the trend on the arrests? Is it more of them at night, late, or in the morning, or does it vary?
Yeah, it just
You never
varies.
know.
I don't think we could really
Wonder if
say
she's
that
gonna
it's-
have to count on jumping out of bed a lot.
No, we won't be doing that because we do have a 24-hour window, so we
You
will
can bring
not
her in
be.
the morning.
The only time we would is if we had a true critical
Yeah,
situation
emergency.
that,
In which you
you know,
probably
and
call
maybe
EMS
an
anyway.
EMS was
Call
gone and you
Sure.
couldn't get a second call for something, you know, it would be a very rare situation.
Yeah.
So who would you use like when she's on vacation?
That's a great question that we would just visit with Elise about. Maybe she would have somebody that could
Hold the crime.
maybe could be around. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't
But-
arrest anybody.
Don't arrest
during
anybody during that.
Right. Of course. I think we could probably get Beth.
Or utilize
Donna
EMS
gone?
if you have
No,
to.
she said she would have to calculate it and call.
So there is some.
You'd have to what? I'm sorry.
Calculate it
Oh, okay.
and let us know. So.
I can't imagine it be significant. I mean, I just can't imagine.
I don't think it'd be $6,000. I mean, yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
$1,000 maybe.
Unless there's a minimum or something.
Which, you know, let's just say for argument's sake, it's $1,500, so that bumps it to $1,400. I think I have that in my budget to make that work. Absolutely.
The only issue would be if you had some kind of thing to push your budget, then we'd have to talk about,
Right.
have the reserve that you do.
Right.
So that's okay.
That's right.
I really appreciate you bringing this to us, because this is a very significant thing, I think. I think that if we have a jail or make a misdiagnosis, you know, someone's going, I have serious chest pains, and, you know, you're thinking they just want Benadryl to sleep better, and in fact, they are having a heart attack, and we do nothing. My goodness, what
All right.
liability.
Well, and that's why you end up erring on caution, and then you end up paying for an ambulance
EMS,
ride
get it.
to Parkview.
For a
And,
Thomas.
right, because of that gas.
Right.
And we've done that
I've done
twice. We've
transport.
transported twice, and come to find out he was just seeking meds.
The inmates that tour the county.
Right.
And
They're
what-
jail free for the evening.
And that specific inmate had told us when he came in there looking, well, he didn't tell the jail staff, but he told one of the other inmates, and of course we can hear them. He said, I'm gonna do whatever I can to get out of here, I'll fake whatever I can. And he did, and
And he did.
you can't risk not taking somebody though, because it pours out, then
Right.
Chris get in a lot of trouble.
So,
I'm not going to prison.
is this,
Not on that side.
Not on that side.
are you talking about a salary position based on your estimate of 8 hours? Or is this an hourly, 8-hour a week, no question about it?
I think we do the salary based on 8 hours a week.
Then if it's
Because
20
again,
hours
it's
in a
gonna vary.
bad week over the 4th of July, she just
I'll just eat it
absorbs that.
because
Right.
I did 2 hours the week before.
Because and as long as she's amicable to that, I believe we can make that work. Because again, we will have protocols in place. We're not gonna be calling her because somebody says, oh, you know, I have a headache.
I'm in favor of this. I don't know if you want to vote, or you just want to talk, or what. This makes sense.
Sounds like if it's in his budget and you're handling it, it's the right thing to do. I don't think
It's gonna be a small expense to the county, because we have to pick up the additional bike and those.
So we wanna look at that price before you make a motion, or?
It probably makes sense to
Yeah.
look beforehand, but, I would say
But
we'll
if,
be able to
if-
vote on it by the next.
If we wanna wait and then maybe at the next
let's keep it a
commissioners
Wetmore
meeting,
Next meeting.
we'll have all the data together by then too.
And a plan
So,
proposed.
so we've put together a position description, but I've gotta go in and just change a bunch of, we're using, we borrowed one from the Chaffey County, but we're gonna,
Okay. Now, my assumption is that most jails have a medical professional to do this, is that correct? I
that's
mean,
correct.
we're really behind the 8 ball.
Well, so, but not fully, not full-time, full staff. The larger jails
Same kind of
absolutely
thing we're
do.
doing now.
Same kind of thing.
That Fremont County does
Yes.
not.
Oh yeah, Fremont County has,
They have NATCOR, right?
I thought
they have NATCOR, and they have, I think, during the day, they have 2 or 3 full-time nurses that are there all day.
Full-timers, really?
Yep, and then they go home in the evening, like 9 or 10 o'clock, and then they're back at 6 in the morning, but
They're also out
the one's on
overnight.
call all the time.
Right, I know.
Yeah, they have 16-hour coverage and then somebody's on
16,
call,
okay.
Correct.
but they're paying a lot for that.
Oh yeah, they pay
Well, they have to.
several $100,000 a year for medical.
What do you call this position?
So detention staff nurse,
So
unless we decide on something different, but that's kind of what we thought we would call it.
would this be a new position with a new job description, or just an
Yes.
addition to the job description that you currently have?
I think we should make it its own thing, because what happens if I get hit by a bus and the next person that comes in doesn't wanna do it?
You get hit by a bus, girl, you're in trouble, because I'm coming after you.
Detention staff nurse.
If it's a separate position, do you have to advertise it? Or can you automatically just move her into it?
I think a county nurse, I don't know, that's a good
That's a
question.
good question.
That is a good question.
Yeah, I guess would be something we'd have to ask the council about, but,
Advertise for 8-hour position.
Just
yeah, it is.
That's right, that's
certainly
that's another question, yeah.
I personally would feel like we could do this in-house. We're extending her hours is what we're doing.
That's
Not really
why
hiring anybody.
That's why I asked the question, is this an extension of the position that we have?
Yeah, I
Or
wouldn't
is this
change the
another
position.
position that we're gonna
County
put
nurse.
Alyssa in? And if it's extension, I agree with you, we do right this second if we chose to. If not,
You just
I think
write
Jackie
a-
has a valid question.
Well,
Right,
somebody could
additional
say
piece of
it was
job.
preferential treatment, and they didn't even give me a chance to apply for it, and Mark Howard would put his 2 cents worth in.
But I think if you keep it the county nurse position, and all you're doing is increasing the scope.
But that's not what they're recommending, that's why I
I know,
asked
that's
that
why you
question.
gotta rewrite
Well,
it.
because I
I
hadn't
don't know.
thought about that point, but that is a great point.
I don't know, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if,
I'll t-
My thought would
You
be,
could
I don't know
have-
why we haven't done it before.
Well, yeah, but we're fixing it now. Here's my thought. My thought is, I like them separate, bifurcated. And the reason is, if
Different.
you decide to move off to Hawaii with your husband, okay? And we have to hire someone, and they may say, I don't mess with jail people, but they would be a perfect, I mean, I like the idea of having
That's
separate.
my thought.
Although it makes sense to have the same person do both, I mean, it just makes sense, but I like the idea of having 2 positions, and if it takes another, advertising and going through the process, I mean, maybe that's what we ought to do.
Yeah, I think so too, if it's,
Put it on the same.
I agree with everything you just said. I think it should be separate as well, for a couple of reasons, and, I think prudence would call us maybe to
okay.
consider posting that. That being said, I don't know of too many nurses that live in this county or anywhere near this county that would probably jump all over an 8-hour, but that's not for us to decide.
Right, right, and if you find somebody better than me, by all means. I mean,
For 8 hours and.
yeah,
So I'd say let's bring Donnie into the fold too and let her help us figure
So
out.
then if we were to do it as a, separate,
That'd be a separate
then it,
part-time.
as an 8-time-a-week deal, then then there won't be any benefits included with that.
That's right.
Correct.
What do other counties do, Shannon?
And that is
there a
right.
public health nurse that has double duty?
So some of them do
So
use
they-
the public health
right.
nurse, like Alamosa County, for example, their public health nurses,
And that's a
they
simple
work
solution.
they work right in the jail.
Probably part of their job description.
Yeah, they have their own
And
office
that's
right
why
there.
I'm saying that would be the way I would see the simplest way to handle this.
If we were, to Bill's point, if we were just extending her hours.
Right.
I
Or
think
he has
the commission could
benefits.
sit right here and do that. if it's an extension of a public health hours.
And with an additional.
One line that says, see the jail.
Yeah,
And when you
fulfill.
build your new facility, you put her office in.
Right, that's where she could
Well,
have
I
an
mean-
office or not. But I think that's the simple
Then there's
answer,
that.
personally. This is not new.
8 hours probably not gonna get it eventually, but
Yeah, if you built me an
Eventually.
office in there, then we could not have to pay $1,000.
Well, we just paid $1 million for the office.
I'm saying in the jail, when they build a new jail,
Yeah.
if they make me a little room.
And that really is.
We have a room in the
I
jail
mean,
for you.
if you did, just playing devil's advocate now, if you were to combine it, so agreeing with what you're saying that, you know, you're gonna have some applicants that maybe wanna be a public health nurse, but they don't wanna spend time in the jail,
For the
but,
right applicant.
but if it's combined, then
it's the job, it's
The job they apply
it's part of the
for.
job
Part of the job.
requirement, so you will
Always
vet that out.
bifurcate it later.
If you had to.
If you had to, you
Yeah,
could.
if you had to.
Yeah, I mean, if you had somebody that was like, I am not going in the jail.
I like the fact
Yeah,
of
have a
combining
job.
it because then it's a full-time county employee working 40 hours a week. She gets all the benefits that go with 40 hours a week, the increased
Cheaper
salary,
price.
all of those things. It just strengthens her job description or her pay and
benefits
everything.
now,
It's just
right?
more
32 hours.
But,
I'm
Attractive.
considered full-time.
Would it, so it
No.
wouldn't, the benefits wouldn't change.
No.
no, but here's what would change though. If the sheriff's budget was gonna pay for the additional 8 hours, if we just expand the position, then it's not the sheriff's budget paying it, then it's gonna be county budget paying it.
Hey.
You know what I'm saying?
True.
But I would be willing, I mean, and again, Donna could address that better than I.
Add that.
Some way to transfer from one line item that I have to that line item, you know,
Absolutely, that could be done.
just to do an adjustment.
That
Sure.
could be done.
We have a number from Donna, 14,600.
That's the end of that.
14,600.
14,600.
14,600, that's about a $2,000 bill.
Now, can you ask her to hold on just a second? So that's if it's a separated position. So if we extended her hours as a public health nurse, other than the salary itself, there's nothing else.
So that would be a separate position, but what if
I think
they
that's correct.
combine it with?
Right,
my
it would just
thinking.
be the hours.
Right.
And
Well,
just,
no,
That'd be a little bit because social
Transfer
security.
from the sheriff's office
And it
Well,
would,
true,
and it
but-
would be from the sheriff's office.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you're
Smaller
right.
Health insurance would not,
No,
and
health insurance.
the rest of that would not,
And
because
it's
you're
all-
still a full-time employee, so
Yeah.
it probably.
And it would be all general fund anyways, so that
So
you
we can do it
do
easy.
it whatever way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
We'll
Do
put
you
a
wanna
proposal
think on
together
this a
and
little
come
bit
back to us.
About
With that.
expanding it? I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
do you wanna, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
No, that's okay, go ahead, Tom. It's just gonna tell them, same thing Tom was just gonna say, go back, think about it, put what we've discussed as one position, you're gonna transfer money over to her.
Okay,
Them and leave her position alone, benefits.
okay.
Yeah, and we could even just put my hours, like the way I do my hours, I could just put jail nursing
8 out.
in our thing,
Right.
and then that line item just comes out of your, so I still only just get one paycheck.
Right.
Right,
Right,
Yeah.
that's right.
And
I think
I
that's
just
cleaner.
put my hours, just like I do,
sure.
you know, OPPI or EPR or whatever, all the different things that I do, it would just be one more
Okay.
line item in there. It would be really easy, actually.
All the drugs.
I'm not gonna, what I'm thinking, I will not say it.
Would you be comfortable coming back on February 20th?
February 20th, I think I'm-
It's in Wetmore.
No, he doesn't wanna go to Wetmore. He's gonna
Oh,
tell us.
yeah.
Let me ask this question, is there a,
Yeah,
is there
that's
a,
He's got cop cars.
is there a dire need to do this sooner than that?
I mean, we've been doing it like this since the creation of the jail, so I think we can make it another 2 weeks.
Okay, that's fine, cause if not, we would do something different.
No, I would rather get it right than try to rush
I
into it.
appreciate that a lot.
So let's, yeah, and by then, we'll work together between the three of us, we'll have a good
And Donna-
position description, we'll get
involved.
Donna involved in it. We'll have firm numbers and we'll make that happen.
And in fairness, it took us 4 years really to get to where we are now with mental health treatment. 4 years
Oh, yeah.
in the making until we finally
That's crazy.
have something that we can play with. It just takes a long time.
Because it's
You're the only one who
expensive.
got it.
Everything is expensive.
Of course it is.
Ms. Meredith, we on the agenda for the 20th. Detention staff.
It already has it done.
And that is what, Will?
Yeah.
Yeah, the cycle begins in February.
And the good news is, you have our report for this.
Okay.
That's
Good,
not an
so,
issue.
I also just got a phone call that said we can get all the Narcan we want.
see, she already saved us money.
What is that?
Narcan, that's the
Oh, so it's all
opioid.
for-
Yeah, you don't have
Yeah, for $0.
The family that makes $8 billion a year selling opioids or something, I heard on the news.
Good for them.
No.
Well, you know, your immunization thing, I just was reading an article, I was waiting for this, $35 million in Colorado alone
Just so you're
spent
aware too, I
on
just applied for the black.
preventable
Marijuana
diseases.
grant.
No, preventable
Well, I want to
diseases.
talk about that before you leave, while we're
Okay.
still on record.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, appreciate it. I've asked
Later, Shannon.
Yeah,
Thanks.
asked Mr. Barr to give us a quick update on the black and gray marijuana grant. So if you would do that, sir, appreciate it.
You want me up here?
You're welcome to, yes.
Well, I didn't-
Apparently two.
Yeah.
Two reports, actually.
Yeah, just keep going.
What has happened and what's getting ready to happen.
So we have applied for the black and gray marijuana grant.
What does that mean?
So it's a grant that they put out. It's really designed to people that work, and it really goes to rural counties. They get it more often than bigger counties because we deal with a lot of marijuana grows. And so in the past, it had been that we had to actually set what we'd done with marijuana grows and prove what we were spending that money for. And so to date, we've gotten about $17,000. We just got a $12,000 grant come in. for black and gray.
From who's funding that grant?
DOLA. DOLA's funding those grants. And so we've applied for it every year, but it runs 2 or 3 times a year. So I just got $12,332, and then a couple weeks after that, I got notified that I was getting another $1,260 or $1,270. And then a week after that, I get the notification from the state that the gray and black marijuana grant's opening again. And so now you don't really have to prove that you've had these incursions into marijuana grows. You just basically send in the grant, and DOLA decides how much they're going to award us, which is how we got the $12,332.
Probably based on the trend you've had in the past. Huh?
It's based on that. I think it's based on population. I think they're trying to push more of it into rural counties. And because they understand rural counties don't have the budget to do those kind of big operations. And so
And we're being the most adversely affected by the illegal marijuana because we don't have the resources. So it comes directly out of the agency.
So it's going to help us buy some supplies. We obviously need like a Connex and other Connex to store evidence and those kind of things. But that's kind of where we're at now, and we'll wait and see a couple more weeks to see if we get that. As far as that grant goes, and I know I heard Cindy talk this morning. We are working on a JAG grant for radios. We kind of got our quote from Motorola, but we weren't exactly satisfied with that.
That's what she said.
And we'll see what Kenwood does for us.
$3,000 each is a lot.
Ken would come back a lot cheaper.
A lot cheaper, about $80,000 cheaper.
Jack's got a question.
Go ahead.
Didn't at budget time, or maybe I just don't remember
Go
closely, but
in your chair.
didn't you say that you were going to get some Kenwoods?
You discussed
So we definitely discussed
You
that
put
we
that
would,
in a number as this is,
yes.
yeah, and.
It's this
you
many
decided-
Motorola or this many Kenwoods.
Yeah, and did you change that, or?
We haven't pulled the trigger on that
Haven't
yet,
done
Jackie, because we're trying to, there's a JAG grant where it might help us, if not completely pay for all the, so we wouldn't have to use that
I was
money in the
just
budget.
curious.
Yeah, and I wondered too, is there any, are the strings attached to that black and gray marijuana grant for its use? Is it directly towards offsetting cost
It's
of?
supposed to.
It's supposed to be, but I mean, really all it takes is our ability to articulate. I mean,
So,
if we were able to articulate that we need radios, I guess, to do marijuana grows, we could certainly do that.
But we have needs, I mean, we have some needs though, so understand that black and gray marijuana, right, so that money comes from the tax revenues that are generated through marijuana sales in the state. That's where, I mean, that's not taxpayer dollars coming out of like a general fund or something, that's how these grants are funded. But I mean, we absolutely need a Connex, to store that stuff, but we also need to get some protective suits, and we need to get a couple respirators so that we don't have a problem like we did last time. So I mean, we're going to be able to justify, and rightly so, we should be spending that towards
overtime.
Those specific, right?
Could that be used for overtime?
Yeah, that's what it is for.
Yep.
That type of stuff.
Okay. Thinking down the road here a little bit, Connexes, we've got one now. We have this pending fence project coming. Would those Connexes need to be on or very near or close to the sheriff's office? Could they go somewhere else?
Well, they need to be somewhere where we can make sure nobody can break into them.
So all we gotta do is bust a lock off of them.
And they'd be right. I would like to see it behind our
Inside
fence.
that fence, okay.
Because it's evidentiary,
Right.
Right.
so.
And are you by statute required to keep that inventory for a certain amount of time? Obviously until the case is closed, but what about after that?
No, just till the case is closed and the district attorney rules that we can get rid of.
Go burn it somewhere.
We're selling.
Well, like right now, we have all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff.
right, get back to the
Lights.
state, they're selling it.
It's just,
Yeah,
Some
you're
of
not
those
storing
lights
any
are applied
marijuana,
all-
just lights, grow stuff. Marijuana's destroyed, right, after.
Yeah.
right, we try, our practice is to destroy marijuana and not keep it. A lot of counties do keep it. I've said, no, we don't have to. The Supreme Court was very clear that we do not have to hold on to that.
A lot of liability holding
So
that.
we will get rid of it until somebody says we can't.
It's been documented, I mean, you know.
Right, that's right. Case law is in place, so we're protected.
Well, thank you for your work on that.
Much to the chagrin of the district attorney's office, I should say.
Yeah.
Much to their chagrin. They want to.
Yeah, and I feel good about that. DOLA, I mean, those people were saying, hey, let's get this done. And
Well, we actually, I mean, the last time we put in for that 12,000, they set the amount, but we weren't really gonna put in for it.
Right.
Because of the drought last year, we didn't really have any big grows. And DOLA pretty much reached out to us and said, absolutely should put in for it. So that we can give that money out, so, yeah, absolutely.
We've considered a small drone, not getting carried away, but one that's just small, that we can use to go in and look at the old grows in the forest. I mean, it would be multi-use. You could use it for a search and rescue mission if you needed to, but primarily to be able to go in and look at these areas where they've been growing in the past, and history
Seeing what's new.
seems to repeat
I
itself.
would
So
certainly think that black and gray marijuana money could be used to get somebody certified as a drone operator.
Oh, yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Which I think
right.
we probably are headed there as a county, certainly as a sheriff's office. You don't have one, right?
No.
And search and rescue.
Yeah, I know Upper Ark sent 2 of their people to like a almost 2-week class to
Yeah.
get certified.
Yeah, you have
So,
to meet
maybe this next go round.
FAA, right, the FAA,
We are looking at
altitude,
right,
primarily.
so that you aren't flying into airspace.
Airspace.
So you don't crash the plane?
Right.
Which is 7.
And I suppose that grant would cover the cost of a drone as well.
Yes.
Yes, it will.
So that'd be very cool.
In fact, we talked to a couple counties that bought drones and funded exactly what we're talking about through that grant.
And then, of course,
Some of them got a little
loan
carried
those
away.
out
I mean, $30,000 drone, I was
like milk.
coughed
They
up
were
a
put a
foot.
stretcher under it, delivering inmates to
Oh my
the jail.
gosh, it was
That's the next thing.
crazy.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Just for loud. I mean, it was, the drone was something else, but you're talking to the wrong county for that.
The $32,000. Yeah, it flies into space.
That's one of my, I could hire another employee for that.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
the work on that, man.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, John.
Dave?
Did you
Going up?
Are you doing the jail term?
Did you wanna do a jail tour?
We need to.
We got time, we can.
We're just about to drop the gavel on this. We could go.
If you don't have anything pressing and you want to, I mean, you guys have
Can't
been
do it
doing once
after
before,
12,
so.
we got time now, we're good.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
free anytime, so.
Thank you, sir. Public comment? Thank you for your questions. Those were, I would have never thought about that. I was ready to move forward, so thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I will second that motion. All in favor, or sorry, yeah, all in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, opposed nay. Meeting's adjourned.